What? But I had a bookmark. What? This is the Danganronpa if speedrun, right? So we just gotta go all the way through. We gotta go through all the dialogue. We're going for the any % route. I don't care what characters we meet, what story we get. We're just going all right through it. So, how do I save my progress in this then? Hopefully I finish this today. That'll alleviate the entire issue, but I could have sworn, like, even when I was exiting, it said leave bookmark. Or sorry, like, I pull this up, I'm like, insert bookmark. Bam! Alright, I did the thing. Return the title. And the return the title is like, return to the title screen if you didn't insert a bookmark, you lose all progress. I'm like, that's fine. That's fine. I had a bookmark. There was no bookmark. Read a fan translation on your Kindle. Really? What page are we at? All right, so I remember that we were at 210 or 220, somewhere around there. So, untuned strings. What's that? Are they like a fan translation group? Or they do other works? Ah, okay, I got you. Cool stuff. Oh, right, you said that. This was written by the same guy that did the Bakuno novels. Right. Can I tell? Considering I've never read the novels, I have no idea. Going from just like the anime to this, there's nothing that I'm particularly like picking up on. Okay, so we've been here. Okay, we're back. We're at our PB. We have met and exceeded our PB right now. All right, let's go. Oh, good lord. Let's actually reflect. What happened the last couple screens? Let's go back a few screens. So the big event, right, was that we got to... Everything happened as we could expect. Mukuro was like comforting Makoto in the nurse's office as Junko. Makoto pushed Junko out of the way from dying during her punishment when in the normal let's back up. Let's go from the very beginning. Let's go. Okay. Yes. Makoto got the escape button from the Mono machine. Monokuma was talking about how he didn't expect anyone to actually win that. He put it there as like what? As like a joke. There's the comforting scene between Makoto because he passed out when Sayaka went over to his room. He was feeling sick or had a headache. And that was when they were going to do the whole room swap thing from the first game. And then so that just that shifted things, and that never happened. And then Makoto wakes up. He and Junko are talking. Starts to feel that Junko maybe isn't Junko, but that's not possible because he only knows Junko. We get to the scene where Junko revolts against Monokuma, and she's supposed to be given her punishment. All the spear, the spears are being sent out. Makoto pushes Junko out of the way. Makoto gets hit instead and is now in critical condition. Makuro reveals herself being singled out by the rest of the group, really being suspicious. She's like, hey, yeah, I'm not, this is who I am. We gotta get Makoto taken care of. And then she calls out Toko. And she's like, hey, Genocide Jack, though. Everyone else is like, oh, what? What about Genocide Jack? Toko, what's up? So I guess just everything's being laid out on the table right now. And that's what we got here. They didn't meet Toko a few days ago. They met Toko 2 years ago. Then we're waking up Genocide Jack. All right, let's go from here. Let's retrace our steps. If there's anything I missed, chat, let me know. I think that's all the big topics that we went over. Seems so random out of place. Why would Makuro mention the name of a notorious serial killer right now? The students looked at each other with confusion when suddenly Toko, who had been groaning in pain, suddenly kicked off of the floor of the gym with renewed vigor. The students continued to panic at the strange turn of events. Toko, now calling herself Genocide Jack, took out a set of scissors from under her skirt and snipped them with glee as she looked around the gym. Huh? Man, it's been a while since I got to stretch my legs. So what were you guys gonna do here at the gym while I was snoozing away? Have an orgy? I understand. I totally understand. You guys need to cut up your clothes so you can feel even naughtier. Yeah, right. Why the hell would I do that for you, dumbasses? My scissors are only meant for cutting the supple, tender flesh of adorable boys. Nice. Love Toko. Love Toko. So happy we're back. So happy we're back. Genocide Jack was causing a ruckus, but when she saw Makoto laying on the floor, she tilted her head once again. Huh? Big Mac, you're like totally about to die. What's the deal? Did the world fill you with so much despair that you all came here to commit mass suicide? That's so hot. But why are you starting without me? Toko, cried Aoi. Get a hold of yourself. Genocide Jack ignored Aoi and let her emotions run unchecked, jumping and dancing with excitement as she held her scissors. Ah, jeez. I wanted to stab Big Mac's side myself. This spot, right here where the ribs are kind of showing already. He's not even screaming right now, though. What does that mean? Oh well. Maybe I can just get used to this feeling of alienation instead. I have no idea what's going on anymore, said Yasuhiro. This is all the aliens' fault. Yasuhiro buried his head into his arms, but no one was paying attention to him. The students' attention was entirely focused on Genocide Jack. Using that to her advantage, Makuro began sneaking over to Makoto. As she cautiously picked him up, she confirmed that his body temperature was starting to decrease. I can still make it there in time. Was that Makoto? Or was that Genocide Jack thinking to herself? Though she was carrying another person, Makuro managed, or Makuro, I guess. Makuro... Oh, this is now being written from the perspective of Makuro now, right? We've got that flip? Okay. Makuro managed to soften the sound of her footsteps as she ran for the gym's doors. By the time the students heard Makuro open the door, it was already too late. She had managed to escape the gym with Makoto. However, not everyone was unaware of what Makuro was doing. Monokuma saw her movements out of the corner of his eyes, but chose not to tell the students. And one other person, Kyoko Kirigiri. She saw Makuro carry Makoto away, but did not inform the others as she watched them leave in silence. As everyone wrestled with their own personal thoughts and speculations, Hope's Peak Academy began walking a path toward a completely different chaos. Shit, son. With Makoto on her back, Mikuro took several trophies from the gym entrance hall, and after passing through the door leading to the hallway, she jammed the trophies through the door handles. Though Sakura could easily destroy these makeshift locks, this should buy Mikuro a few extra seconds. Then Mikuro started running to the nurse's office, the last place she spoke to Makoto. Everything necessary for performing first aid could be found there. Her little sister was her enemy. Her fellow ultimate students were her enemy. Her only ally right now was Makoto, who was on the verge of death. Mikuro knew that even she wasn't her own ally right now. Amidst all this chaos, amidst her sister's betrayal and nearly being killed, she believed. She believed she was the only one who truly understood her little sister. That's why she felt like she had to protect her. That's right. You didn't do anything wrong, Junko. You just wanted to feel despair. That's all. Right? So, okay. If we know that the remnants were persuaded to join Junko's side, because Junko is very charismatic, did she also hold that influence over Mikuro? Or is she doing this out of familial bonds? Or other attachment to Junko? Is she knowledgeable that she's being kind of swayed like this? And she wants, out of what, her own will, she wants to pursue this? Is that what I'm kind of taking this as? That she's aware, she's what? Self-aware of everything that's going on, and she still wants to support it? Both? Yeah, I'm kind of taking it as being both, right? But like mostly out of that familial tie. Like, this is my sister, this is how she is, and I'm doing, like, I know what my role is, and I'm just like going to help. That's kind of the feeling. Yeah, okay, good connection. To how Peko is feeling. Yeah, can definitely get that vibe. Because you love me. That's why you wanted to kill me. You were just trying to feel despair, right? I'm sorry. I failed to bring you despair. But at the same time, she wondered, if she saves Makoto and betrays her sister by disrupting her plan, wouldn't that fill her with an even stronger despair? Wouldn't that make her happy? But betray Junko? What should I do? Mikuro closed her eyes and listened to Makoto's weak breaths. What should I do, Makoto? On a battlefield where all you need to do is kill and survive, Mikuro was invincible. She could suppress all her emotions and fully immerse herself in becoming a perfect killing machine. This is actually kind of topical. Hope and I started Daredevil Season 3 on Netflix a little while ago. And so this is when, I guess, potential spoilers for a show that's been on for, what, 2 years now? 2018, I think. Poindexter. I want to say Poindexter becomes like a Fisk's personal tool, gets swayed after having just his life just like taken out from under him. And I want to say he becomes Bullseye. If I remember right, that's how the whole transformation goes. One of the things I really appreciate that they show, that they set up in the show, is how unstable Dex becomes to not having. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with this, with how it's displayed, but the actual, like, lack of control and environment that Dex has was great. And how lost and disoriented one could feel from that. I thought that was great. Do I call it storytelling? I'm not sure what the terminology is to use. Anyways, so I'm getting that kind of parallel here with the rigid structure, with understanding your purpose and being able to move exactly to a schedule, know what's expected of you, and not really have to question everything. And then once those gears start turning and the hinges are starting to break off, the floodgates are just released. And everything just kind of like starts spilling out. So, I don't know if that's gonna be relevant at all, but interesting, that I'm going through with another character well, I'm drawn with similarities with another character at the same time. But on this twisted battlefield of a daily high school life, she could no longer keep her emotions in check, especially around her little sister. Mikuro, the ultimate soldier, was beginning to question ultimate despair. The impulses of the normal high school girl inside her were starting to affect her state of mind. Even so, the poor girl continued to run through the dark hallways, clinging to this conflict within herself. She was now walking along a narrow, hair-thin path. A path between the hope of Makoto Naegi and the despair, which is the despair is lowercase, of Junko Enoshima. Meanwhile, everyone still in the gym was left in a state of complete confusion. Toko was famous for being a prolific author, but even though she came across as unsociable and depressing, her mind-blowing transformation seemed to have just tossed all that aside. Toko is Genocide Jack? Sayaka trembled with fear as Jack tilted her head and stuck out her long tongue. Huh? What's with this reception, you guys? You guys didn't know who I was? Have I been found out? Or have you known all along? And why was the sullen samurai dressed like that? That outfit didn't look good on her at all. The sullen samurai was probably referring to Mikuro, which means Toko already knew Mikuro in advance. Confronted by that shocking truth, the students had no idea where to begin talking. So many things were clearly wrong by this point. But there were a few students, such as Byakuya and Kyoko, who opted to remain calm and observe the situation. Alright, someone better spill it. Who gave Makoto an extra mouth to feed? I don't care if you want to stab him or slice him. I just can't forgive whoever put that ugly-ass hole in Big Mac's side. Toko... Oh, no. Genocide Jack spun her scissors in her hands. As she spoke, her emotions and facial expressions constantly changed. Even without the threat of her scissors, she exuded an aura of danger that made her unapproachable. The flank stank of a young boy like macaroons is like a bluebird that pops out a golden egg. If you would have just let me handle it, I would have killed him so good that even Tiltil and Miltil would be eager to die. What is that a reference to? I'm assuming that's got to be something else. Poor Makyudi's heart and soul have been stomped on by such a sloppy kill. The bluebird of what? Oh, is this a thing? I'm not aware. That actually sounds pretty exciting too, but I decline. Toko, you're not making any sense, screamed Aoi. What in the world happened to you? Genocide Jack answered by... I'm just gonna call her Hina. Genocide Jack answered by pointing her scissors at Hina. What happened to me? I got bored, that's what. That sourpuss locked me up a few days ago, but when she went unconscious, I thought I'd finally get to do my thing. But I woke up for all this? My cutie's soaked with blood. I've got no clue what's going on. It's so damn confusing, all I can do is laugh. No one seemed to be able to get a straight answer out of Jack, so Fumi made a timid remark. I've dealt with girls like this in my 2D dating games, but this doesn't even compare. It's like there's a net triple S difficulty level to clear her. I can't believe you'd even think about her as someone worth clearing, mumbled Leon. It was clear that things were going nowhere. and as if she were responding to everyone else's expectations, Sakura stepped forward. She might be in the throes of confusion. I should try to restrain her for now. As soon as she heard that, Genocide Jack stopped moving, stuck out her lizard-like tongue, and grinned wildly. Oh, what's up? Are you really gonna fight me, Battle Ogre? Too bad. My lovely sisters are only for cutting through adorable boys. Women should just stay home. I won't taint my sisters with your filthy blood, replied Sakura. Seems my words are useless on you. Sakura entered a fighter's stance, determined to restrain Jack. But Jack knew she couldn't win in a fair fight, and adopted a strange stance of her own. In a normal fight, Jack would obviously lose to the ogre. But if Jack focused on dodging attacks, the outcome of the fight would be hard to foresee. Of course, Genocide Jack's physical abilities were only obvious to a few of the students in the first place. The two women exchanged hostile stares as the other students gulped nervously and watched. Except for one person. Kyoko was watching something else. She was watching Monokuma, who was in the corner of the gym, unmoving, as white noise emitted from his speakers. He had stopped moving. I guess the speakers is how he talks, right? I never really thought about that before. It might have been stated and I forgot about it. But that would make sense. He had stopped moving the moment everyone's attention focused on Sakura and Toko. It's possible that Madara's hacking had been disrupted, but oh right, because he got hacked. Right. An infinite number of other possibilities were also swirling around in Kyoko's mind. She brushed back her hair with a gloved hand and continued to watch. Though she couldn't fully remember her talent, the actions she was taking right now were fueled by pure instinct. The strange situations that kept occurring in front of her were shaking her to her very core. Her mind worked diligently to scoop up countless amounts of information from her vast sea of memories. And as they were synchronizing with the synapses firing in her brain, Sakura and Toko kicked off the ground at the same time, and an intense impact rang throughout the room. Throughout the gym. Chances are good the Bluebird reference is actually reference to the Zero Escape series. Creators of Friends and the Bluebird of Happiness is a big symbol. Oh, that's cool. At some point, I need to go through Zero Escape as well. I know Sin gifted me something for Zero Escape. I don't remember exactly what it was because I think there are multiple titles. Might have been a collection. I don't remember. But yeah, 1 and 2. Thank you. Yeah, the Nonary games. That's what it was. So that's a collection of 1 and 2. Is there a 3, or is it like a different arc, or are they just like divided differently? Thanks to the heated battle that was unfolding in the gymnasium, Mikuro Ikusawa was able to buy more time than she had imagined. 3-0 time delay. Oh, I've heard of that one. I might have seen like Naru playing that at some point, maybe, or someone else. I don't know. Actually, oddly enough, another friendo, Veritarasu, has been playing through Danganronpa 1, 2, and now he's on Trilogy? I don't know if that's a collection of something or a different title entirely, but I think it's hysterical that like this is the time for Danganronpa. As soon as she entered the nurse's office, she rummaged around for medical supplies and did what she could to stop the bleeding. Though still quite shallow, Makoto's breathing slowly stabilized. Mikuro let out a little sigh of relief. However, even though she was somehow able to stop the bleeding, she wasn't out of the woods yet. It's always a really interesting phrase to me, out of the woods. Miraculously enough, it seemed like none of Makoto's major arteries or organs were damaged. Was this perhaps thanks to his ultimate luck? Was Mikuro saving Makoto thanks to his ultimate luck? What kind of luck does he possess? Like with Nagito, right? Let's think about Nagito. I was thinking that Nagito's luck ran out because he died, but no. That's not the case. That was fully planned and intended. And his luck worked for him. That, I guess, worked for him. That the others were able to come to the conclusion that they of who the traitor was, right? And it's, but then they didn't die. Was that lucky? But he ultimately wanted them to work everything out, right? So what was the act of them discovering who the traitor was, discovering who the killer was, lucky for them, in that they were able to use his sacrifice to preserve themselves? I guess that could be a way to read it, right? Right, he wanted Chiaki to survive. Yes. But they used the rest of the group used his actions to survive and to essentially preserve themselves, right? They were all able to get out. So was he unlucky because Chiaki died? Because, right, like because Chiaki didn't survive? Like, what is that line? Where is that drawn? Oops. If only I could do a blood transfusion. The nurse's office should have had several blood packs for transfusions. We know about those blood packs with Celeste and Yamada. Mukuro suspected that Makoto's blood type might be written in his e-handbook, but as she reached over to search his pockets... What were we talking about? I think it might have been Doc that brought it up, that in Japan it's common for citizens to know their blood type. I don't think I know my blood type off the top of my head. Honestly. I see you reaching for a sleeping boy's clothes. What in the world is about to happen next? Adults can keep playing, but you kids better press the B button, okay? Mukuro turned toward that familiar voice and saw Monokuma standing before her. You're all alone with Makoto right now. Just think of me as a cute wild animal and let your lust lead the way. As the headmaster, I must prevent any illicit sexual relationships. But physical education classes are just fine, Missy. Though he looked just like the one that was at the gym, was clearly a different Monokuma. Multiple Monokumas had been placed throughout the entire academy, so it wasn't a stretch for him to suddenly appear out of nowhere. Regardless, the same person was controlling all of them. Mukuro had been wary of Monokuma attacking her while she was treating Makoto's wounds, but his apprentice at this particular moment seemed to take her by surprise. Junko? Asked Mukuro cautiously. Monokuma tilted his head along with his entire upper body inquisitively. Junko? Who's that? Junko. I've never heard of that country before. No more jokes. Answer me, Junko. You were planning to kill me earlier, right? Junko this, Junko that. What's your problem? I'm telling you, I'm Monokuma. What? What? You must be a big disappointment if you can't even remember something like that. You're not just a disappointment as a person, you're a disappointment as a sister too. You're too skinny and your brain is nothing but muscles, and your personality is just unbearable. What's up, Fubian? How are you doing? I'm sorry, said Mukuro. She didn't need to apologize, but hearing her little sister call her a disappointment yet again was enough to make this ultimate soldier recoil. Monokuma ignored her in her current situation, climbed on top of Makoto's barely breathing body, and began poking his cheeks. So, what are you gonna do with Makoto now? I'm really interested in human mating habits, you know? Monokuma ignored her in her current situation. Oh. What are you? Asked Mukuro before trailing off. Monokuma lowered his tone and began whispering into her ear. Makoto's a pretty nice guy, huh? He even sacrificed himself to save you. He's so generous that's actually hopeless. He's not dead yet, insisted Mukuro. Despite her firm tone, she couldn't hide the fear lingering in her voice. That's the most disappointing thing about you. You can't even say, I won't let him die. I won't let him die, Junko. Mukuro could barely get a word in as Monokuma erupted into hoo-hoo-hoo-hoos and and continued to torment her. I'm doing okay. Work has been long. We had auctions at work today, and I had a really rough call with a guy who was trying to get out of the hospital, and he's like, hey, I know I'm late. I talked to him yesterday to call him. It was like our final call, and we're all like, hey, like, you are being sold for auction tomorrow. We need money. Like, this is our policy. Like, give us, just please, like, do something to save your account. He's like, nah, I'm in the hospital right now. I'm not gonna make the payment. I'll send someone in the morning tomorrow. I'm like, okay, like, here is the deadline. It's I got it. And then no one comes in the morning. And so, like, things go off. We swapped over to online auctions. And so I don't even, like, run anything. I don't conduct anything. We don't do anything in the office, especially thanks to COVID right now, because the whole situation, we don't want people in our office or, like, a lot of people all together in one area. So everything goes off without a hitch. People do their business, and he calls the office. I'm like, guy, you were supposed to be here like 4 hours ago. It's like, yeah, I'm staying another day in the hospital. And the person earlier this morning couldn't make it, so I'm just gonna make the payment tomorrow. I'm like, guy, it was due today. I can't do anything. I'm sorry. And it's such a tough situation to be in. Like, I get it. Shit happens. It's really unfortunate. At the same time, the guy's been late for nearly 2 months now. And it's a whole, like, just legal thing with our state on how it's supposed to be handled, and we have no control of that. Oops. It's really draining. Like, the collection calls and the auction calls and just everything else are, like, the most draining part of my job right now. And God. I'm working at, like, I'm working at the places that have the most collection calls, the most auction calls. People are always late. It's a mess. Like, I think for this month at my main office, we had 69 calls I needed to make for everyone that was late. And then at the office I was at today, we had 50-something calls. It was crazy. Granted, I'm not like a call center either. Like, I have other shit I need. Like, I'm the only manager at our facility, so I'm responsible for taking and receiving all calls, for payments, for selling merchandise, for renting spaces, for cleaning, for general maintenance, for everything about this place. And I need to make all. It's just, oh God. Yeah, it gets rough. How is your day, Hoopian? Hope your weekend is going to go well. This contradiction was very much like Junko. And Mikuro was so shaken that all she could do was watch the bear prattle on and on. Only the fit survive in this world. The only thing that kind-hearted people can do is die, you know? As proof, you're gonna watch Makoto die really soon. Ouch. Ouch. Makuro's tone of voice had become irregular ever since she took off her Junko wig. Aside from her conversation with Makoto, everything she said as Junko was from a script that her sister had written. But now, there was no script for Makuro to rely on anymore. Again, this is what I'm talking about, right? We're going off the script. We're going off this rigid schedule. Rigid schedule. Oh, did I skip a page? Oh gosh, thank you. As if to do that, too bad, no regrets, see you tomorrow. Is this all because Makoto was the first person to smile at you? You, a disappointing, depressing, unladylike, inhuman killing machine. Despite denying that he was Junko, Monokuma began speaking at length about Makuro's... Oh, that's the contradiction. Gotcha. Gotcha. I thought the contradiction was talking about how, Makuro was this soldier, and she's saying that she won't let Makoto die. Good call. Makuro was treating Monokuma like she would treat her own sister. If the other students saw her acting so weak, they never believed she was the same person who fought Sakura in the gym. And not just that, if anyone from her mercenary past could see her now, her stark change in attitude might make them think she was someone else entirely. Monokuma continued to rail against Makuro. Okay. Music's just gone. Nope, he's gonna die. I know it's sad, but you just have to face the facts. Monokuma wriggled his limbs and danced around them, then pointed right at Makuro's face. Because Makoto is going to die by your hands. Huh? Infighting among the terrorists. The big, bad terrorist silences the weak-willed Makoto before he can leak any information. Doesn't that happen all the time? In the end, all the desperate things you said in the gym turned out to be the lies you told just to escape. Makuro frowned at Monokuma. Can't do that, Junko. I won't let you do that. As she blurted out those words in a trembling voice, Makuro was gripped with confusion about what she just said. Am I defying Junko right now? Why? It was a strange feeling. To Makuro, it was like she was standing on the ledge of a tall building and imagining what would happen if she jumped. A destructive feeling akin to holding a friend's baby and wondering what would happen if you tripped and fell. That already, holding the baby just makes me feel so uncomfortable. Being around children, being around people is bad enough. I already don't do well being around people, like just being in a social setting. But babies and little kids, like toddlers or like, I don't know, like, I don't know, anyone. I just can't relate. I don't know how to interact. It's so awkward. Before she knew it, fear and anxiety had suddenly taken control of Makuro's heart. As a member of Fenrir, and as ultimate despair, the way that they refer to ultimate despair really confuses me. Right, as... I keep thinking like as an ultimate despair. As it is either a thing to be or a title. But it's an organization. So I'm like, okay. But then I would think as part of Ultimate Despair. As a member of Ultimate Despair. Junko is the ultimate despair, but it's all right. That I understand like the organizations being talked about here. It just referring to it as just as organization is no. It's odd to me. It's as if they are the like the embodiment of the organization. I don't know. I think it's just to me like perception thing. I have a coworker talks to me in a rude tone and so on. Basically telling him this is in the wrong. Printer said he knew what he was doing, so 5 minutes later returns to my desk. I know you were right. I printed to the wrong printer. I just said yeah. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. I'm sorry, Obian. That sucks. I hope his tone improves after that. That's the point. It is their identity. I mean, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I'm definitely like perceiving it that way. It's just the wording used is just different, I guess, than what I'm used to. It's not normalized. I don't know. Maybe it's just the way that I've read things, just not come across wording like this. Anyways. Makuro had killed innumerable people. She'd handled live grenades before. She had descended from the sky in a parachute as anti-aircraft weaponry fired all around her. Her heart never wavered on the battlefield, but now it felt like it could collapse at any second. Monokuma, however, was as stable as a tree and slightly tilted his head to the side. Huh? Weren't you listening to my story? I'm not the one who's going to kill Makoto. You are. What are you saying, Junko? Monokuma began giving a strange explanation to a very confused Mikuro. Do you know what the suspension bridge effect really means? It means you push the person you love off a bridge and they'll be yours for eternity. I haven't heard that at all. Speaking of effects, Elthian, have you seen the response video to Lindsay Ellis's Omegaverse video? I was watching that earlier today, and it was the first time I've heard of the Barbra Streisand effect. It was mentioned down in the comments, and I had no clue what that was referring to. Even my other coworkers, like, why is he rude? Is he just rude to everyone, Hubian, or is it just like singled out to you? Like, I'd bring that up to management or something. Like, fuck that guy. Life doesn't always follow what your textbooks say. It's sad, but that's what love is. Anyways, I was thinking, sorry, before I continue. Topical that, like, it came out recently, because we were just talking about it, what, last night, right? Like, it's... Anyways. His words made no sense, and Mikuro couldn't think of anything to say, as she stood there dumbfounded. Meanwhile, Monokuma continued his little speech, intentionally saying things meant to antagonize Mikuro. Basically, this is your big chance, you know? If you kill Makoto right here now, nobody will ever take him away from you again. Makoto Negi, dead by dawn. The last name he ever spoke was Mikuro Ukusaba. The last person he ever smiled at was Mikuro Ukusaba. Doesn't that sound wonderful? There was a certain appeal to Monokuma's twisted suggestion, and Mikuro found herself unsure of her own judgment. This is wrong. It has to be wrong. But it's really Junko saying all this. So doesn't that mean it's right? No, this isn't Junko, it's Monokuma. Monokuma. And are you sure he wants to help Makoto? Once he gets better, he's gonna know everything. He'll know what you did to your classmates. Intrigue. What'd she do to her classmates? Is it the fact that she was working against? Is it the fact that she was in ultimate despair and she's been lying to and betraying the classmates, or something else? Oh, erasing the memories. Okay. Trapping them in a killing game. That one is sure. Because she helped Junko set... I mean, I guess everyone helps set everything up, right? I'm pretty sure... it's because I catch his mistakes. Make him correct them. Oh, God. I'm sorry, Ubi. That sounds like a pleasure to deal with. I can't believe... Oh, it's right here. Duh. I can't believe you'd actually erase your friends' memories of their time together and force them to kill each other. Makoto might get mad at you and say, our real enemy isn't the bear, it's her. Do you really want him to blame you for this? Makuro's face turned pale. Or are you going to kill the others? If everyone except you and Makoto dies, you'll be able to spend the rest of your school life together. We can't hold a class trial with only 2 people. It might be a good idea for you both to live the rest of your lives in this academy forever. No, that's wrong! And what are you going to do if his memories return? It's not like you were dating Makoto or anything. You were just watching him from afar the whole time. Man, you're so shy. You can shoot people's hearts and brains no problem, but you can't even woo some stupid boy into liking you. Do you want to know who Makoto had a crush on before his memories were taken away? I swear to God it feels Sayaka. Mikuro trembled as Monokuma continued pressing the issue, gradually loosening the screws, keeping her heart secure. So Mikuro chose to pretend she didn't hear anything at all. All emotion vanished from her face, and she looked silently from Makoto's e-handbook. If you're looking for his blood type, it's not written in the handbook. Makuro's face turned pale. Within 5 seconds, her plan to ignore Monokuma had already failed. But since your headmaster is made up of 50% kindness, I'll tell you anyway. Makoto's blood type is B. As soon as she heard him say that, all the anxiety, horror, hostility, malice, and dread churning within Mikuro had completely vanished. Thank you, Junko. Makuro's eyes sparkled without a hint of suspicion, so she turned her back to Monokuma without a hint of suspicion and walked toward the refrigerator containing the blood packs. Fresh blood packs should have been prepared before the plan took effect. When we get to the blood packs in-game, in Danganronpa 1, are any missing? I mean, assuming that this is an AU game, right? This is an alternate take on the events that played out in Danganronpa 1. And these actions would not carry out into what we experienced past that branching point. If something's still lined up, that'd be kind of interesting. The last in cold storage for 21 days. That should still be good. Despite her emotionless face, Mikuro let herself feel a small amount of satisfaction as she took a blood pack from the refrigerator. As Monokuma watched her, his normally emotionless eyes twitched ever so slightly. If a third party could see his face right now, or even if the other students could see his face right now, they'd wonder, is Monokuma surprised? That's right. They'd have the same shocked look on their faces as if they were seeing Monokuma for the first time. At that moment, a whisper crept out of Monokuma's emotionless face. There should be a limit to how disappointing you can be. It was far quieter than a mosquito's wings. Even with her battle-hardened hearing, Mikuro couldn't hear what he said. Monokuma shook his head, and the voice returned to normal. It's not like I care that you, the ultimate despair, has hope in anything. It's not like I expected much from you to begin with, so this at least helped me feel despair. But seriously, you disappoint me. Just so you know, despair and disappointment are completely different things, okay? They're as different as bears and pandas. Are pandas not bears? I'm thinking of koala bears not being bears, but I don't know the family history of pandas. What do you... Makuro's body started to shake as she turned back to look at Monokuma. He hadn't started talking any differently than usual. Junko hadn't turned off the voice modulator and started talking in her real voice or anything. And yet, Mikuro was utterly terrified. She was terrified on instinct, not as a soldier. Half of the reason she was terrified was because of her instincts as the ultimate despair. And the other half was because she was Junko's older sister. Even through Monokuma, her instincts were telling her that Junko was annoyed with her. Junko, why are you annoyed? Is it because I betrayed you? Or is it because I didn't die like you wanted me to? Sulked Monokuma. I'm beyond annoyed. I'm really, really angry. And I'm really, really disappointed right now. I'm so pissed I could take a rage nap right now. Monokuma's anger didn't seem any different from his usual anger toward the students, but Mikuro could instinctively sense another emotion mixed with it. Right now, she could feel that Junko was feeling hopeless disappointment. It's normal for someone who's disappointed to lose hope, but for ultimate despair, disappointment means something else entirely. To them, disappointment was tantamount to losing despair itself. Mikuro was a member of Ultimate Despair. At her sister's behest, Mikuro had soiled her hands many times in order to fill the world with despair. Despite her pride toward being a member of Ultimate Despair, there was a clear difference between Mikuro and her sister. Gosh. I'm not the leader or anything over my area. This problem, they look at me. Someone need to catch that. Told me I should babysit the rude coworker. What? No, what? What does the supervisor do if they're not supervising? I'm sure they've got a whole lot else on their plate as is, so that's never mind. Junko Hanashima was despair incarnate. She was born in despair, letting it infect other people's hopes so it could rot them from the inside out, twisting them into her own image. Interesting. For Junko, feeling hope was its own despair. Creating despair in others created despair in herself, which caused her to feel both intense pain and intense bliss. So, does Junko wish to experience hope so that she feels despair all the time, while simultaneously increasing her dominance elsewhere to infect the entire world with despair? Which is more important? Her dominion of despair or her experience of despair? Or can they coexist? Junko had walked the fracture created from the conflict between pleasure and penance all her life. Eventually, the fracture would widen until it swallowed the world and tore it in half. But Mikuro, on the other hand, had neither hope nor despair for the world. At least, not when she was a member of Fenrir. I wonder if, Fenrir got absorbed into ultimate despair? Ever since she was a child... Excuse me. Ever since she was a child, Mikuro believed she was meant to spread despair because of her sister. She didn't harbor any ill will toward the world. She simply accepted she was meant to spread despair, and chose to walk the same path as her sister. The doubt she felt was only a recent development. When Junko told her about the plan, she watched the world burn at the hands of terrorists wearing Monokuma masks. She never wavered once. However, as soon as she heard about her sister's plan to make their classmates kill each other, Makoto included, a strange feeling began to stir within her. What started as a seed of doubt soon grew into a thorny vine ensnaring Makuro's feet. As soon as she disguised herself as Junko and finished meeting the other students, as soon as she had confirmed that everyone's memories had been completely taken away, that vine began tightening around Makuro's heart. They're gone. Junko is the only one who knows about me now. That's it. But that's no problem. It's just like old times. Things will never go back to how they used to be, but that's fine. This should be fine. She had relinquished the past 2 years she had spent with her friends so she could betray them and deliver death and despair unto them. Though her heart ached, Makura was beyond feeling guilt or remorse for her actions. But the question, why does my heart ache like this, still remained unanswered. Perhaps that's why she spent so much time talking to Makoto when she was in the nurse's office. And when Makoto gave her that one particular answer, something changed inside her. In return, I promise that if I do decide to kill someone, it won't be you. The words Makura blurted out to Makoto weren't improvised to further her role as Junko. It was an honest sentiment from the bottom of her heart. She was even planning to ask Junko herself if Makoto could somehow be spared from her plan. Over the past 2 years, Makura's interest had been slowly shifting away from her sister and toward the world itself. By extension, her interest also included Makoto, the first person to ever smile at her and make her feel connected to the world. He was like a sapling of pure honesty that had taken root in Makuro's heart. But by the time she realized that, the tree had already rotted. As Makuro struggled to understand the situation, Monokuma let out a sigh and said, I wonder which part of you is a wolf anyway. You're just a dog that blindly follows Junko's orders. What an insult. What does the tattoo on your hand even mean? Are you just a bitch who's pledged her loyalty to her owner? I bet Toko would say that. I'm positive. Monokuma continued to talk as Makuro stood in confusion. I was obviously lying when I said Makoto's blood type is B. What? Cried Makuro. You lied? Junko. A normal person would have been suspicious. I never thought you'd actually believe me just now. I must have misplaced my eyes because I totally did not see that coming. Not even with my ability to predict the future. How shocking. I'm about to start crying my eyes out like some sort of robot cat. Seriously. It's going to be okay, Junko, said Makuro. I know our plan kind of fell apart, but I'm still on your side. Are you feeling alright? Because I'll do anything. Snap. A harsh sound came from Monokuma's mouth. That sound was one of my circuits overloading. It had been so long since I felt this angry. Meet me on the roof of the school. I'll smash out all your baby teeth. Monokuma started shadowboxing in front of Mikuro, who remained frozen in place, clutching a blood pack in her hand. She still looked confused, and Monokuma threw up his arms in frustration. You're so disappointing. I can't even predict it anymore. A threatening roar burst from Monokuma's mouth as he leapt at Mikuro with his sharp claws extended. At that moment, her face became completely emotionless. It was not a conscious action. The defensive instinct she honed during her time with Fenrir temporarily suppressed her emotions as she countered Monokuma's attack. Mikuro grabbed a nearby IV stand and used it to parry Monokuma's claws. However, Monokuma's claws seemed to have been made with a special alloy and easily sliced the bar in half diagonally. But instead of following up his attack, Monokuma continued talking to Mikuro. I guess you're not much of a disappointment when it comes to fighting. In fact, if you were so pathetic that you died from that single attack, that would have been interesting in its own way. But right now, you're just incompetent and everything. I'm sorry, said Mikuro. I couldn't help blocking your attack. But there's no way I can fight you, Junko. After all, I'm all you have. I'm the only one who understands you at all. Mikuro's words were riddled with endless dismay. The contrast between her usual stoic self and the way she was acting right now is so stark, people might assume she had multiple personalities. However, Monokuma just quietly stared at her. He was perfectly still, as if all his functions had powered down completely. But Mikuro continued to share her feelings. There's no way I can just leave you alone. And then, Monokuma broke his silence. But at that moment, a monitor in the nurse's office lit up, displaying a girl's face. Junko Enoshima. The same monitor that has the good morning, good night messages? The same monitor that plays that there's a class trial? That monitor? At the same time, a voice completely unlike Monokuma's began to play from the speakers. Hey, Mikuro. Junko! It had been several days since Mikuro had heard her sister's real voice. Though her face remained emotionless, excitement sparkled in her eyes. However, that shine immediately dulled. I'm grateful to you, Mikuro. I mean it. Junko's voice emanating from the speakers sounded very gentle and kind. Junko? I'm really sorry. I said so many mean things to you. I even tried to kill you earlier. And I was about to make you do something horrible just now. Even though I know about your feelings toward Makoto. I don't... You don't have to force yourself. Even if you didn't notice, it was totally obvious to anyone looking at you. I never cared about the class photos, but when Makoto said he was going to take one, you made sure you were facing the camera. Did Mikuro take the photos? Oh. Is that... Oh, those class photos. Gotcha. I thought they meant like the ID photos or the portrait photos, not like the homeroom class. Okay. And then Junko Enoshima, the ultimate despair, flashed a smile, a pure sweet smile. On the monitor, she looked like a normal high school student girl teasing her older sister. And yet, Mikuro could feel despair and anxiety encasing themselves around her. I always thought you should have tried hard to take pictures with Makoto. But I guess that's what makes you so disappointing. Still, even though you're disappointing and annoying, I still love you. Is Junko the ultimate abuser and gaslighter? That's all she ever wanted to hear her sister say. Mikuro believed. No matter what Junko said, she believed she really loved her. She believed she was the only one who could truly understand the despair known as Junko Enoshima. She was naive. I love that line. She was naive. This gives me hope. Oh, given everything the series is about, maybe I shouldn't say that. But this paints the picture that perhaps Mikuro is going to change. That Mikuro is going to develop. That Mikuro isn't just going to hang on to every word that Junko says. And I would love to see that transformation. As soon as she heard Junko say, "I love you," Mikuro realized she never completely understood her sister. It was only at this moment that Mikuro finally understood her sister's feelings. Junko's words right now were kind. Perhaps that kindness was completely honest. The words, "I love you," might have been true as well. However, for Junko Enoshima, this was her way of saying goodbye. She was severing the ties between them. It was painfully clear to Mikuro. And then, before she could even say anything, the girl in the monitor made a remark that cut Mikuro to the bone. "I'm sure someday you'll make your dreams come true." Ultimate Despairs never talked to each other like this. A simple truth stabbed into Mikuro's heart. Junko had no further use for her. Her own sister was parting ways with her. Mikuro had dedicated over 10 years of her life to the cause of Ultimate Despair. And at this moment, it all counted for nothing. So, was Mikuro in Fenrir and Ultimate Despair at the same time? It's not like one overtook the other. But those years no longer mattered to Mikuro. Her sister's rejection was more than enough to send her into the depths of despair. That's why Mikuro, even now, clung to a small sliver of hope. Meanwhile, Junko was still on the monitor. "Yeah, right. Did you really think I'd say something that nice? You're so annoying. Can't you just hurry up and disappear already?" Mikuro hoped Junko would say something like that. She hoped that she'd start verbally abusing her again, or call her useless and incompetent. Mikuro was no masochist, but she preferred to be showered with bullets and contempt than endure this kind of emotional pain. But "I love you, Mikuro. Bye-bye." The monitor went black, leaving Mikuro to process the horrible goodbye she just received. And as if on cue, Monokuma started moving again. "Isn't family love so nice? By the way, did you know that in about half of all murder cases, the killer is a family member?" Are those true stats? Monokuma spoke in his usual tone of voice, but it was unclear if his words were getting through to Mikuro. Mikuro let the blood pack in her hand fall to the floor and tighten her grip on the iron bar she was still holding up. I'm sorry. Junko, I'm so sorry." She mumbled quietly, as if she were chanting a spell, and walked past the blood pack on the floor to Makoto's bedside with the iron bar in her hands. I'll do it properly. I'll make sure I do it. So... Oh? Said Monokuma, perking up. What are you gonna do properly to... What are you gonna do properly... What are you gonna properly do to Makoto with that big, thick rod he got there? Are you gonna do him? Or are you gonna do him in? Either way, I'm starting to feel some heart-throbbing excitement. Mikuro looked like she had been completely broken. Monokuma walked closer to her with eager anticipation. Suddenly, Monokuma's body silently floated into the air. Huh? With no expression on his face, Monokuma tried to see what had just happened to him. And in the blink of an eye, an iron bar ripped through his body. The tip of the bar, which had been cut diagonally earlier into a sharp point, went straight through Monokuma and stabbed into a surveillance camera. The lens was completely destroyed, and the camera shot out sparks as it broke down. The iron bar was still stabbed into the surveillance camera as Monokuma dangled from the other end. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but only static came out. A few seconds later, his functions came to a complete stop. Without making a sound at all, Mikuro had kicked Monokuma into the air. As soon as Monokuma's power source and his bomb circuit had completely aligned with the surveillance camera in the nurse's office, Mikuro plunged the iron bar into all three of them. No normal human has the skill to utilize such a technique. Not even an ultimate. All the hesitation within Mikuro had vanished. Her eyes sparkled like a panther sucking its prey at night. A tense aura surrounded Mikuro, even more so than when she fought Sakura earlier. Ignoring Monokuma's lifeless form, she looked at Makoto as he breathed softly and remembered her sister's parting words. So this is despair. She mumbled to herself. I'm so sorry, Junko. I never really understood what despair was. She spoke without emotion, like a machine. But it's going to be alright now. I finally understand. Hidden within her, passions began to stir. So, I'll make sure I make you happy, Junko. I'll make sure I fill you with despair. I'll save Makoto. I'll make sure the others don't die. I'll let them escape from this place. I'll deal with the people on the outside too. You invested so much time and killed so many people for the sake of this plan. And I'll destroy every last remnant of it. For you. This was not an act of vengeance toward the sister who had abandoned her. This was an act of mercy. Stuck between the ultimate despair and the hope she gained from Makoto, Mikuro was being refined to something that was unlike despair or hope. And she had no way of knowing where her path would lead. Oh, I like this. I like this. Where's her path going to take her? What's going to happen? We'll see. I'm going to go get a jacket though. I'm feeling a little bit chilly. It is cold in my room. I will BRB. Alright. Oh, it feels so much better now that I'm warmer. Oh, it feels so nice. Alright, so think about the picture. So, I have to infer that, like, that Mikuro had some sort of feelings for Makoto the entire time. And this wasn't just a recent development. But... like... weren't we just talking about how Mikuro... well, I guess this is the first time that her feelings for Makoto have changed and outweighed the loyalty that she had to Junko. And so seeing what happened to Makoto is, what, like the straw that broke the camel's back? Another weird phrase that people use. And it was just a tipping point to set everything off. So, okay. Not necessarily? Oh. So that's based on what, like, on everything. Sure, okay, yeah. Sorry, yes. I misspoke. What I said wasn't what I actually meant to communicate. But yeah. Oh. Thanks, controller. So saving Makoto, ruining her plans, is giving Junko what she wants as far as Mikuro is concerned. Yeah. Following that. Over 10 minutes have passed. Wait, did I just skip the last screen? No, because that was this is... stuck between the ultimate despair and the hope she gained from Makoto. Mikuro is being refined into something that was unlike despair or hope, and she had no way of knowing where her path would lead. Yep, right, because we got... it's like the end of Danganronpa 2, right? Make your own future. Over 10 minutes had passed. The sound of the students leaving the gym and making their way to the nurse's office rang throughout the hall. Genocide Jack had continued to dodge Sakura's attacks with their tricky movements. When Byakuya blurted out, "Enough already, you irritating pervert!" Genocide Jack stopped in her tracks. Oh my? Being chewed out by my bespectacled Byakuya's making my masochistic side get all tingly. They say the line between sadism and masochism is paper thin, but in my case, it's more like a Venn diagram. Words can express these hot waves of passion squirting from the top of my head to the tips of my toes. As she rambled incoherently about Byakuya, the other students tied her up with the microphone cable from the gym and locked her in her room. Half the students stayed behind to keep an eye on her, while the rest left to search the grounds of the school. As soon as the door to the nurse's office opened, Kyoko saw a non-functioning Monokuma with a hole in its chest and the remains of a surveillance camera. It wasn't just in the nurse's office, though. On the way there, the students had seen several destroyed surveillance cameras and scattered Monokuma bodies. Ooh, is Mikuro going on a rampage? This was a clear violation of school regulations. But if Mikuro was allied with Monokuma, those regulations wouldn't apply to her anyway. The Monokuma inside the gym was no longer moving, and the students had lost contact with the hacker, Bashiki Madurai. Is that an anagram for something? Or has, like, a hidden meaning? So the students assumed that Madurai had taken control of a different Monokuma and went after Mikuro on his own. With that in mind, Kyoko turned and looked inside the nurse's office once again. It was surprisingly quiet. The beds were empty, but Kyoko could see from the bloodstains that someone had been resting there recently. Looks like they're already gone. Mondo remarked, but as he was about to leave, Kyoko spoke up behind him. I'm going to stay here with Chihiro and search for clues. Huh? Asked Chihiro, her timid eyes widening. Clues? Kyoko continued to speak in a calm tone of voice. Yes, there may be some clues in these Monokuma remains. I figured you would be the best candidate for investigating machinery. Sakura spoke up. But isn't that dangerous? Since Sakura could clearly hold her own in a fight with Mikuro, she had joined the other students in searching the school grounds. Kyoko shook her head and replied, "I'm sorry to say this, but if things get out of hand, Chihiro and I will just be in your way. I think it's better if we search for clues here instead of doing nothing. Besides, we might be able to use Monokuma's parts to detect any radio broadcasts from the outside world." You certainly have a point. Understood. We'll be exploring this floor for a while. Please shout for us if anything happens. Sakura left the nurse's office. How did she destroy Monokuma like this? As Chihiro cautiously stood over Monokuma's remains, Kyoko started searching through the room. She zeroed in on one of the beds and began studying it intensely. A moment later, Kyoko was satisfied with what she found and let out a small sigh before she spoke. "Chihiro, let me apologize to you in advance." I dragged you into this gamble of mine, so if anything happens, run out into the hallway and call for help. But Kyoko's not Celeste. Instead of answering Chihiro's question, Kyoko started talking to one of the empty beds. "Let me say this first. I'm prepared to hear your story. No matter how ridiculous it may sound, I promise not to decide if it's a lie or the truth until after I've listened to it in its entirety." Chihiro looked confused. Chihiro looked confused? It's looked, right? To keep tense? She didn't understand what Kyoko meant at all. The ultimate lowered her eyes and turned to the ultimate programmer to make a request. "Chihiro, does your laptop have a voice recording function? And do you also have a microphone?" Yeah. I want you to use that to record everything we're about to hear." But there's no one here." As Chihiro wondered to herself, she began connecting Monokuma's parts to her laptop and turned on the record function. "I'm sure we'll pick up every sound in this room now," said Chihiro nervously. Satisfied, Kyoko nodded and once again started talking to the empty bed. "So, what were you gonna do if I told everyone I'd found Makoto?" When she heard Kyoko say that, Chihiro looked back at her and was surprised by what she saw. At that moment, the ultimate programmer was kneeling on the floor next to Monokuma's remains. In that position, she was able to see it. Of all the beds in the nurse's office, there was one bed in particular that couldn't be seen from the entrance. Underneath that bed lay a limp Makoto. A blood pack was hidden next to the bed and slowly providing Makoto with a transfusion. The contents of the blood pack were clear. Rather than blood, it seemed to be some kind of saline solution used in emergency hydration. Though it wouldn't be as effective as an actual blood transfusion, it was enough to keep him from going into shock. Though that was the extent of Chihiro's medical knowledge. She was already surprised that Makoto had been in the nurse's office this whole time. Not only that, but Kyoko wasn't talking to the bed that Makoto was under, which sent chills throughout Chihiro's body. However, there was nobody under the bed that Kyoko was facing. But the moment Chihiro noticed that, a voice rang out from underneath it. As soon as everyone's attention was focused on Makoto, I was planning to take advantage of that opportunity to take someone hostage. As Chihiro cautiously lowered her head until it was nearly touching the floor, she was able to make out who was talking. Surprisingly, the person hiding there was clinging to the frame of the bed, like a ninja clinging to the ceiling. Presumably, if someone had glanced under the bed quickly, they wouldn't have noticed anybody was there. Though Chihiro had no idea how the person was able to hide under the bed for so long, she could at least understand that their strength was beyond normal human levels. There was no question that the person hiding under the bed was Mikuru Ikusaba. "But you pretended not to notice. Why?" Mikuru's voice was as cold as ice, but Kyoko didn't even flinch as she responded. "Because I wanted to hear your side of the story. I knew you were hiding under that bed. Compared to the others, the frame was slightly more pronounced." There's that detective work going on. Chihiro tried comparing the beds to see if this was true, but she couldn't tell the difference at all. Only Kyoko's natural observational skills could let her see something like that. Mikuru seemed to come to a similar conclusion, and appeared from under the bed without making a sound. She leaned against the wall and let her arms fall to her sides as she threw out another question. "Why do you want to hear what I have to say?" Kyoko thought about the simple question for a while, as if she were searching from within her own heart for the answer. "If I have to provide an answer, it's because I wish to remain neutral." Kyoko quietly looked down. I'm currently missing most of my memories. I don't know who I am or what talent I had to be accepted into the school. She could hear Chihiro gasp behind her, but Kyoko didn't mind and continued. But even so, I believe I should listen to what you have to say. Regardless of whether you are good or evil, I must hear all the facts in order to know the truth. Good and evil don't matter. I'll come to a conclusion based on what I see and hear. I think that's the methodology that's been instilled into me. Was Kyoko just missing her school memories? I want to say that there's something else that she couldn't remember. Definitely wasn't her past. She remembered her dad. It was just the school memories. I see. I completely forgot you were like that, Kyoko. But before I listen to what you have to say, I'd like to ask you one question first. What is it? Makuro's reply was completely emotionless. Kyoko presented her question as if she were asking it of herself as well. What was my talent that allowed me to attend this academy? The answer to that question was simple. Kyoko, you're the ultimate detective. That answer marked a turning point for both girls. Missing memories related to her talent. That sounds right. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. Thank you. I have a better understanding of the situation now. Kyoko slowly raised her head and presented a theory. If my memory loss was just a coincidence, then No. Your group has the ability to erase people's memories. With that in mind, if we take into consideration the situation that unfolded in the gym earlier, I can only come to one possibility. Possibility? Yes. Well, you said to Byakuya when he thought you were taking Toko hostage. You claimed that they met 2 years ago. It's possible that might actually be true. The fact that Makoto called out Mukuro's name, the things that Mukuro confirmed and denied, Genocide Jack's outlandish claims, these key factors that Kyoko noted using her special observation skills, were converging in her mind to form one answer. It's possible that Byakuya and Toku's memories were also erased like mine. But I don't think their circumstances are quite the same as mine. But if our memories can be controlled so freely, it calls into question whether the day Monokuma appeared was really the same day we entered the academy. Like you said, it's possible that we've known Toku Fukawa for the last 2 years. What do you mean? Chihiro cried, still working on connecting her laptop to Monokuma's parts. Kyoko continued, speaking to both Chihiro and Mukuro. We thought we were knocked unconscious with sleeping gas the moment we arrived at the school, but it's possible that we were simply made to think that's what happens. For example, we may have already spent the last 2 years at Hope's Peak Academy, and our memories of that time were completely erased. It's even possible that we aren't even ultimates at all. Just random people who've been implanted with 16 years worth of false memories. Though Kyoko's claim sounded ridiculous, her face was completely serious. She looked up at Mukuro once again. Which means, I'm considering the possibility that your crazy story is actually the truth. Kyoko's declaration filled the room with silence. But she didn't let the silence overwhelm her. Kyoko cut through it with her own. Without evidence, all I can do is make hypotheses. That's why I want to hear what you have to say, Mukuro. I have no intention of blindly believing what you're going to say, or what that self-proclaimed hacker who took over Monokuma said. She paused and lowered her eyes again, then declared with powerful determination. Even so, I intend to come to a conclusion as fairly and objectively as I can. But I can only do that if you trust me and tell me the truth. Kyoko's conviction was clear from her voice. Kuro's eyes narrowed slightly, and a tapestry of emotions flashed across her face as she looked toward Kyoko. But when she opened her mouth, her expression and voice were completely devoid of emotion. That's right. I completely forgot you were like that. Mukuro repeated this to herself softly, then faced Kyoko and declared, That must be why Junko took care to erase more of your memories compared to the others. So is Junko explicitly? Or Junko's orders? Very well, I'll tell you everything. After Mukuro placed Makoto back onto the bed, she began to mechanically tell a story. The story of a girl Who cried a river and drowned the whole world? Who wanted to fill the world with despair? A girl who only felt truly happy when it rained? Happy when she was filled with despair herself. A plan for despair that began 2 years ago, or perhaps even earlier than that. How the world was currently ruled by despair itself. Mikuro provided a brief summary of everything she knew about the plan. So, Junko explicitly makes sense. I didn't realize it was only until they were in the school, though. After, once they were sealed in the school. Okay. Okay. I guess that makes sense, because it would have been sealed from Kyoko... Yeah, from Kyoko's dad, right? Because they... Right, because they were... The school was supposed to be the sanctuary for the students. And they set up the barriers to protect them from the outside world coming in. Right. That's why it sounded even more outrageous than Kyoko had expected. And through her story, Kyoko was able to learn the truth about herself. Who she is and why she came to the academy. The fate of the academy's real headmaster, Kyoko's father. As she listened to Makuro's story, Kyoko remained silent the whole time. Her face went blank when she learned her father had died, which happened at the very beginning of Danganronpa 1. Perhaps her memory loss and the absurdity of the situation helped lessen the impact somewhat, but there's no guarantee Kyoko would even believe her story. After Makuro finished speaking, Kyoko stayed silent. With her unrivaled mental prowess, she was able to listen to Makuro's story without interrupting her or dismissing it as nonsense. Makuro continued, "You don't have to believe me. After all, any pictures that could prove my story are with Junko. All I can do is talk." After she said that, Makuro silently walked toward the entrance to the nurse's office. When she arrived at the door, she spoke again without looking back. "But even if you don't believe me, you still listened to everything I had to say. So, Kyoko, Chihiro, thank you." After apologizing in such a strange tone of voice, she turned to the bed where Makoto lay, breathing weakly. "Make sure Makoto stays rested. When he wakes up, make sure you give him some sports drinks from the dining hall or supply room to drink. Please." "Of course, but what are you going to do now?" asked Kyoko. Makuro straightened herself up. "Despair? I need to make Junko feel despair." Makuro continued mumbling to herself as she opened the door. "There's nothing else I can do." "No, there is something else you can do." Makuro stopped walking as Kyoko spoke formally. "Regardless of whether Monokuma is really Junko Anashimo or Beshiki Madarai, if you're dealing with him, he won't be able to lay a finger on Makoto. I don't fully trust you, but if you're really concerned for Makoto's life, I'm willing to work with you. Unlike Bashiki, who's probably abandoned him already. Right? I'm sorry. I don't really work well with others." Makuro looked away, then bowed her head as she left the nurse's room. "But, I'll do my best." The doors closed and Makuro was gone. "I'm sorry for involving you in something so dangerous, Chihiro." As she continued to organize the vast amount of information that Makuro gave her, Kyoko turned to Chihiro, who was still working on Monokuma. As she trembled with fear, Chihiro slowly looked back at Kyoko. Kyoko, about what Makuro just said now." Chihiro's face turned pale as she struggled with her words, and Kyoko tried to calm her down. "We can't determine if anything she told us was true or not. There's no need to be afraid." But Chihiro shook her head and returned to looking at her laptop. I think she's telling the truth." "What are you basing that on?" Well, it looks like Monokuma is really being controlled from the outside." Part of Monokuma's system had been connected to Chihiro's laptop, and she was analyzing the data within its control system. And it was then that the ultimate programmer noticed something unusual about it. This control program, I thought it would be another year before the system became fully operational. Chihiro started trembling so much that she was unable to continue speaking. We can't confirm that, said Kyoko, proposing another possibility to avoid jumping to conclusions. It's possible that a similar program was being developed in secret. But Chihiro adamantly shook her head and said, "No, that's not it. It just looks really familiar to me." Kyoko looked over Chihiro's trembling shoulders to peer at the screen, and that's when she noticed this program. Chihiro, did you create this? Don't tell me alter ego's making a comeback. First floor and main hall. Mikuru continued. How many pages are we on? 400. Oh my god. Mikuru continued. Actually, we doubled what we started with. Let's go. Mikuru continued moving forward and was fortunate enough to not encounter Sakura or Mondo. With no interference from anyone, she made her way to a hall as large as the gym and stood before the sealed main entrance. Suddenly, Monokuma popped out from the shadows to block her path. About the 2/3 mark? Cool, we might actually finish this tonight, if we keep going. Yeah. Yes. I kind of meant it, like, just as, like, an Easter egg, like, somehow this exists and we're bringing it back. Because. But. Gotcha. Did we learn about that in the original? I don't think so. I don't remember that being brought up. I wonder what kind of relevance that has. I wonder what that implies. Within this hall that resembled a nuclear bomb shelter, Fallout, replete with all manner of heavy weaponry, Monokuma's silhouette was conspicuously out of place here. His laughter rang throughout the room as he wiggled his body from side to side. What were you doing at the nurse's office? Did you eliminate your rival from Makoto's affections? No. Or did you help play matchmaker instead? Either way, don't you think it's kind of adorable to put Makoto and Kyoko in this kind of situation together? If this were a suspense film, those two would be the last couple standing. But if this was a horror film, they'd just die anyway. The killer was alive all along. Splat goes the blood. Plop goes the meat. I'm a huge fan of endings where the characters think they're gonna live, but they're really headed to a final destination. Wait, what the hell is a tenation? What does that even mean? Despite Monokuma's angry complaints, Mikuru remained unperturbed. She continued to stare icy daggers at Monokuma, as if she was waiting for him to finish speaking. Well, anyway, I'm just so sad right now. A regulation-breaking delinquent is disrupting the harmony of this peaceful academy. I can't even keep one of my students from running wild. Time to say goodbye to your incompetent headmaster. I'm going to use Monokuma Evolution to become a big Magnum headmaster and mold you into a decent student. As soon as she said that, Monokuma extended his claws and waddled toward Mikuru. So, if I'm going to mold you, then I gotta kill you first. Right as he finished speaking, Monokuma suddenly charged at Mikuru like a spiked volleyball. But Mikuru was faster and dodged Monokuma's attack. She jumped back, keeping her distance from Monokuma just in case his claws could extend even longer. Just then, a shadowy figure appeared next to her. Mikuru twisted her body to its limits and just narrowly evaded the figure's attack. When she landed on the floor, she immediately saw. So what does the immortal killer want anyway? Are you gonna tell the others the truth and escape with them? Even though you know what the outside world is like right now? Two Monokumas were speaking to Mikuru in unison. Honestly, I don't mind if you do that. I can just imagine the look on everyone's face when they discover the truth. It fills me with such heart-throbbing excitement. The two Monokumas continued to speak in stereo sounds. You said you'd destroy my plans, but there's no happy ending waiting for you, no matter which route you take. And you only have yourself to blame for that. Don't tell me you thought they'd be grateful to you. Even if you guys escape here, you think they'll still forgive you when they get a whiff of that nasty air outside? Some of them might prefer to stay in the school, and some of them might resent you for being kind and showing them the truth. But then again, this is all your fault anyway, so it doesn't really matter what they think of you. Monokuma made a little mistake. Despite facing down 2 Monokumas, Makuro's expression didn't waver. She understood that controlling 2 Monokumas simultaneously was a piece of cake for Junko. Makuro drew an arm-length metal bar from seemingly nowhere and readied herself. It was the remains of the IV stand from the nurse's office, sharpened into a pointed weapon. With her weapon in hand, Makuro responded in a cold mechanical tone. That's fine. I'm already used to that. None of the fear she felt when Monokuma suggested that Makoto would blame her appeared on her face. Her path was clear to her now, and she calmly issued her demand to Monokuma. Junko, open the gates. The shock of such a straightforward demand left both Monokumas momentarily speechless. But soon they replied, Huh? Why? So we can all leave together. Another straightforward answer. Both Monokumas faced each other and began gesturing as if they were whispering to one another. Makuro knew their movements were intended to mock her. Unmoved, she continued to speak to Junko directly. I think they'll understand if I show them the outside world. And then they'll stop doubting Makoto. You always find new ways to disappoint me, Makuro. Did you forget why the school has an air filtration system? It's true that the air outside is polluted, but I don't think it'll kill us immediately. Besides, it's better than being trapped in the school and forced to kill each other. How can you be so sure the others will go along with you? You know what I mean, right? Before the former headmaster got turned into space dust, he interviewed the others and they all agreed that they wanted to stay in the school. That was before the memories had even been erased. Do you really want to betray their wishes? Makuro blinked and slowly stepped forward. I don't really care about their feelings. You're all I need, Junko. So don't worry. I'm watching out for you. I'm going to make sure you feel despair, and I'm going to make Makoto and the others happy. If you want to revel in your own despair that badly, then I'll trust the hope Makoto gave me and take my chances with them instead of you. Makuro's brief but powerful words caused the Monokumas to turn and talk to each other again. Oh my, this doesn't look good at all, Monokuma A. This child doesn't realize her own hypocrisy. She's so disappointing that she's starting to reach critical mass, right, Monokuma B? The 2 Monokumas looked at Makuro, who seemed ready to destroy them, and said, What do you think, Monokuma C? Makuro was taken back by the question, but her instinct suddenly kicked in and she immediately dodged away. At that moment, a 3rd Monokuma, claws extended, passed by where her head had previously been. This new Monokuma unit landed with several spins and faced Makuro, who had clung to the remains of a surveillance camera still attached to the ceiling. I agree with you both, A and B. The 3 Monokumas lined themselves up. To the students locked inside this academy, the sight would have been akin to a nightmare. Right on! 3 units began speaking in perfect harmony as their 6 eyes looked up at Makuro. Suddenly, they each jumped away in 3 separate directions and kicked off one of the walls. The path of each unit's triangular attack all converged on a single point, Makuro, who was still clinging to the ceiling. She was surrounded by razor-sharp claws coming at her from different directions. But the situation wasn't even a nightmare to Makuro. Compared to the time she fended off 3 assassins who had invaded her camp one night back when she was still a member of Fenrir, this was nothing. This thought crossed Makuro's mind as she dangled from the ceiling with one hand and thrashed her limbs around like a tornado. Intercepted by this move, the Monokumas fell to the floor with a loud crash. Makuro landed on the ground and chased after one of them, brandishing her metal bar. Suddenly, she stopped moving and took a huge step back. One of the Monokumas exploded with a deafening roar. He had detonated the bomb inside of himself in an attempt to take Makuro down with him. But thanks to her honed battlefield instincts, Makuro managed to avoid the explosion. She looked toward the hallway, expecting the explosion to have attracted the attention of Sakura and others. But she didn't hear any footsteps approaching. Monokuma's voice rang from within the dense smoke. Oh, you don't have to worry. I already told the other students to assemble in the cafeteria. They were eager to follow my orders after I told them I disarmed the poison gas, and that a special police unit was coming to get them. I'm pretty sure Kyoko and the others are all in the cafeteria by now. I'm sure Makoto's with them too. I doubt Sakura will get too rough with them. but I'm sure Byaku will torture Makoto once he wakes up. I can just imagine him rubbing salt or pouring soy sauce into his open wounds. Man, I'm getting all hot and bothered right now. As she listened to Monokuma's overlapping voices, Makuro tilted her head slightly and asked, I'm pretty sure they're going to find out that you lied about that special police unit. Are you really okay with that? No worries. I've dealt with you. I don't care at all if they find out I was lying. Oof. You still don't get it? You're such a disappointment. It suddenly dawned on Makuro. Not the reason why Monokuma didn't care if the students found out he lied, but rather that the voices of the Monokumas in the smoke were gradually increasing in number. As the smoke started to clear, the shadows of 3 Monokumas disappeared. The one that exploded couldn't have revived, so a new one wasn't come to take its place. But there's no way Makuro only heard 3 Monokumas talking just now. As if to prove her hearing had been accurate, the Monokumas suddenly made their move. 3 Monokumas bent over and began twirling their upper bodies. From behind them, new Monokumas emerged, like after images brought to life. The second row of Monokumas mimicked the earlier ones with only 1 frame of delay, revealing even more Monokumas behind them. Eventually, Makuro realized that there were 3 rows containing 10 Monokumas each. This is called a circle dance? Monokuma's 30 voices spoke in perfect harmony as they divulged information that had nothing to do with the current situation. The crew already knew that multiple Monokumas were positioned throughout the academy, but only Junko knew how many Monokumas actually existed. Makuro had no way of knowing if these 30 Monokumas were part of the larger contingent. The flock of two-toned teddy bears continued to swirl around. Makuro felt like she was being bombarded with hypnotic images. But faced with this abnormal sight, the ultimate soldier remained calm and maintained her focus. She was nothing like the girl who had panicked earlier in the gym when Makoto was impaled. As she stood before 30 emissaries of despair, she slowed her breath and allowed her heart rate to accelerate. It was instinct, not fear or panic, that sent her blood racing throughout her body, speeding up to the reaction time of her cells. As her senses sharpened, Monokumas began speaking to her again. Don't worry, I'll make sure Makoto doesn't die. As long as everyone lives, I can as long as Makoto lives, I can reset their memories as many times as I want. That's alright. All your effort, hope, dreams, and determination are going right in the garbage heap. The Monokumas took turns speaking in groups of 10, as if the mastermind controlling the Monokumas wanted to show off her ability to manipulate them. However, the ultimate soldier knew what the true purpose behind all this was. She trained her ears to their limit and noticed a certain sound hidden among the Monokuma's voices. Makuro's face remained perfectly still as she cleared the floor. The moment she moved to the side, a roaring sound shook the entrance hall. The ceiling mounted turrets in front of the gate started raining bullets down on Makuro. The Monokumas were just the mastermind's decoy while she tried to blow her away. As if further trapped near, the Monokumas charged at Makuro through the storm of bullets. Makuro guessed that the mastermind programmed their movements in advance so that they wouldn't get hit by a single bullet. She ran for the gates, evading waves of bullets and claws every step of the way, programming 3 Monokumas in 2 turrets while also predicting Makuro's nightmare. Jesus. Makuro's escape route? Yeah. This would be considered impossible for anyone, but Makuro knew it was possible for Junko. As ultimate despair... God, when the music just cuts out, it's so weird. As ultimate despair, she possessed despair-inducing abilities that surpassed the capabilities of any normal human. Her display of power was only for filling Makuro with despair. Despair. The scene playing out in front of Makuro was brimming with despair. The adorably deadly Monokumas laughed and danced like reapers as bullets whizzed through the air. It was despair to the point of absurdity. It was all for Makuro. But in the presence of such despair, Makuro felt a strange serenity. For me? Junko's doing all this for me? Junko, are you watching me right now? In the end, perhaps Makuro really was the disappointment. She clenched her fists. Junko, thank you. Uh-oh. 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 This sounds like Mukuro is just accepting her fate. The sound of gunfire overshadowed her whisper, and Mukuro fell completely silent. As a member of Ultimate Despair, Mukuro's heart was filled with joy. Though she was filled with emotion, her eyes had lost their sparkle. Silence filled the air. Even the gunfire from the turret seemed to stop for a moment. But that was only an illusion to the one controlling Monokuma. Something strong enough to silence the gunfire and avoid being picked up by the sensors spread through the school, with Mukuro at the center. I'll make sure I do this right. With that final thought, she closed her mouth and turned off her emotions. As she ran through the waves of scorching bullets, the air around her began to grow colder. As this coolness spread into her heart, it began to beat in a mechanical fashion. Several seconds later, Mukuro's body and mind melded together and became one with her surroundings. Her temperature now dominated the battlefield. Despair, bullets, and Monokumas filled the area. Mukuro predicted their movements and jumped into the air without any hesitation. One of the Monokumas jumped at her, but she avoided his attack, kicked his body, and launched herself in midair. Bullets pierced the space Mukuro was previously occupying, striking the falling Monokuma right through its internal bomb. The impact of the bullet caused it to explode, sending fiery Monokuma parts everywhere. As she rode the blast wave, Mukuro balanced herself in midair as she kicked away three Monokumas that left after her. She moved so gracefully she was practically flying. In contrast, the Monokumas threw themselves into the path of oncoming bullets, exploding one after another. Some of them exploded near the main entrance, but the blast didn't leave a scratch. With full control over the entrance hall, Mukuro evaded bullets and confirmed that the bombs inside Monokuma weren't enough to destroy the door. But she refused to stop. Mukuro needed to get information on what she must do to escape the academy. She had no desire to kill Junko. Okay. Mukuro wanted to fill Junko with despair by instilling hope into the future of Makoto and the other students. That was Mukuro's ultimate goal. Get information. In contrast to her determination, her mouth stayed shut. But this did not mean Mukuro was not currently speaking to Junko. The situation, this battle of death and destruction, was a conversation of sorts for Mukuro. All she knew how to do was fight. She thought she wasn't interested in anything else. She thought she didn't need anything else. All Mukuro needed to be was a sword to fulfill her sister's desire for despair. That purpose alone was the crux of her existence, and she lived her entire life without convincing herself that she couldn't do anything else. That's why power was like a language to Mukuro. A battle to the death revealed more about her heart than mere words ever could. Her words were in the wind of savagery that blows across the battlefield, uprooting others who also speak the language of violence. That was true even against her sister. When Junko would berate her sister, Mukuro couldn't talk back. All she could do was cower and apologize profusely. Okay. But it's different now. For the first time, Junko is using a language her sister actually recognized. The child of despair who tore the world apart was speaking to her sister with the language of power. Mukuro's heart filled with joy. For that reason, she strengthened her focus on her conversation with Junko, and that emotion began to gradually disappear. On this frigid battlefield, Mukuro continued her heated conversation. Endless rounds of despair fired from the school's turrets. Mukuro's words intercepted every last violent shot that threatened to shatter her body and mind in half. Whoops. She quickly realized that the Monokumas hadn't decreased in number at all, no matter how many she kept destroying. Dangan means bullet. I think we... That's why... Oh! Oh! Neat. Very neat. I didn't even notice. I think we talked that Danganronpa meant that in the first one because trigger happy havoc. But interesting contextualization. She quickly realized that the Monokumas hadn't decreased in number at all, no matter how many she kept destroying. This right here feels like Danganronpa meets Dynasty Warriors, right? You're reading a version with translator notes? Oh, that's gotta be really cool. It's gotta be really cool. Not only that, she noticed that more Monokumas had been joining the fray, until there were nearly 50 of them for Mikuro to fight. But Mikuro's resolve wouldn't break so easily. As she continued to wield her power, her heart began to fill with something that was neither hope nor despair once again. Oh, is it gonna be determination? I hope it's determination. She learned despair from being abandoned by Junko, and she learned hope from her acts of violence. Interesting way to learn hope. For Mikuro, who had no interest in this world, this small space in front of the gate was a reflection of her life, a representation of her perfect world. This disappointing girl, filled with endless disappointment, who knew of no other way to live, continued her lonely dance. She surrendered herself to the rhythm of despair, which accompanies the music of hope. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. How much time? Oh, so now we're in the control room. And the numbers aren't going crazy this time. How much time had passed? The surveillance cameras at the gates were capturing footage of countless Monokumas falling at the hands of a child who fought like a raging demon. So I guess we've got an Akuma to deal with the Monokumas. The Monokumas bolstered their numbers, and now 100 of them were trying to sink their claws into Mikuro. Most of them were running on autopilot, reacting to her movements based on prior information they had received in advance. But despite standing before hundreds of mechanical adversaries, Mukuro's face showed no fear. She hadn't sustained a single injury, giving her a presence that was nearly divine to behold. The Sakura Agami was powerful enough to injure her arm. Mikuro, in her current state, could potentially fight Sakura to a draw now, without relying on firearms. She took complete control of the battlefield, taking in her surroundings as if they were a part of herself. She dodged attacks from the rear as though she had eyes on the back of her head, and stabbed through Monokuma's weak points with her metal bar. No matter where the attacks came from, Mikuro deflected them all as if her skin were covered in eyes. Describing her as ultimate no longer did her justice. Mikuro had transcended the boundaries of humanity and becoming a pure killing machine. Despite that, even though she understood the ludicrous power her sister possessed, Junko was not afraid. She felt not one iota of fear. After all, all Junko can feel is despair. She even started to admire her sister's attempt to fill her with despair. But that sentiment quickly filled Junko with an orgiastic ecstasy of despair. Junko knew. She knew that Mikuro was neither hope nor despair. She was just a phenomenon. A disappointing girl who no longer understood herself, who only knew how to be violent because it was all she could believe in anymore. Mikuro had become an avatar of destruction beyond that of any military force. She couldn't even be considered a soldier anymore. She was a natural disaster like a typhoon or a tornado. Or perhaps like gravity. She was now a fundamental force of the universe that only existed to bring despair to Junko. The mastermind enjoyed watching her sister go all out. If Mikuro destroyed everything and ruined her life, Junko would still be comforted by the despair. She could just go right ahead and overpower her. Junko considered this for a few seconds until a familiar hopeless habit reared its head. Her habit of getting so bored that it made her sick. The girl who had been grinning as she watched the screen now bore a look of calm stoicism, and she reached for the microphone connected to Monokuma's speakers. Mikuro was no longer human anymore, but Junko knew how to bring her back. It was a simple feeling, really. With that hopeless feeling for Mikuro in mind, the mastermind just said one word. Mikuro. That's it? That's it? Alright. Give me 1 second, y'all. I need to go check up on something. I will see you soon. All right. Sorry about that. Had to take care of something. All right, and we're back. Hey, friends. Sorry, my glasses kind of broke. Glasses kind of broke. They're what is it? The size that connect to. Oh gosh, I don't know what the different parts of the glasses are. Anyways, like the corners of the glasses broke, and then the lens all just loose. It's annoying. So we're back out to the. I got to the entryway. Mukuro. Voice. It was calling her name. Instead of using Monokuma's voice filter, Junko's natural voice was coming out of a Monokuma unit. That's all it took, with one word. Mukuro Ukesaba stopped being a force of nature and became a person again. Monokuma would not miss this opportunity. As if moving to the beats of Mukuro's shaking heart, the torrent of claws leapt to attack her. Mukuro trusted her instincts and twisted her entire body to fend off the attacks, leaving her with only a few scrapes here and there. Is that it? Really? Oh. Mukuro, watch out. Huh? As soon as Mukuro heard that voice, her mind went completely blank. There was no mistaking it. That was Makoto's scream. The scream that saved her from the spears of Gungnir and changed her destiny. No, it's wrong. It took her a tenth of a second to realize that voice was just a sound clip that Junko had replayed. It was more than enough time to drag Mukuro, who had regained her humanity, into despair. Right when she recovered from her moment of shock, Monokuma appeared behind her and roundhouse kicked her in the temple. She twisted her head to roll with a blow, but at that moment a different Monokuma attacked her from the opposite side with a headbutt. And as soon as Mukuro dodged the attack, 3 Monokumas launched simultaneous drop kicks and knocked her to the ground. Ooh. I feel like I'm skipping pages and I don't know why. Huh. The fact that they weren't using their claws meant they weren't trying to kill Mukuro right away. Before she could stand up again, dozens of Monokumas waiting for her on the floor climbed on top of Mukuro and pinned her limbs. I'm not okay. I think it's from the auto load, or like the auto text, and it feels like it's just going a page forward. One of the Monokumas waddled over to... I love that word. Waddle. One of the Monokumas waddled over to Mukuro as she lay face down on the floor and laughed. A pretty girl getting pinned by all these me's. I wonder if I should feel more excited about this? But don't make that face. If I wanted to kill you, I'd just pump you full of bullets right now. But I don't think the audience watching this on TV would like that ending very much. I need to make sure I do it the right way this time. What are you planning to do to me? Mukuro asked in her emotionless voice. Monokuma guffawed and answered. Nothing. I'm just gonna stick to the original plan and make you play the killing game at the school. I'll erase everyone's memories again, and I'll just make them redo the introduction and the entrance ceremony again. In typical Monokuma fashion, he leaned his face towards Mukuro. But it'd be boring if we had to redo everything. Maybe this time, I'll have you participate as Mukuro Ukesaba. I'll take away even more of your memories, like I did to that irritating detective girl. You'll just be a poor little girl with no memory at all. As Monokuma talked and wiggled his body from side to side, the other Monokumas danced and twirled around. Amid this fantastical scene, Monokuma continued to describe this hopeless plan in a nonchalant manner. I guess this is a way to link everything together, right? Like, this... What if this actually happened? And what if everything got reset? And what if Mukuro... I keep saying Mukuro. Mukuro? Ro. God. Doesn't remember it. Like, her memory's just gone. Considering that Junko can do anything with. Well, she targeted Kyoko's memories of being of having of words are hard. What I mean is like I'm looking for a way to tie this into everything. So this is more than just an AU, right? This isn't just what if this happened. There is a plausible way to link any sort of connection between this event being like a precursor to what we experience in 1. Right. I'm not being serious. I'm just thinking like that if she has the ability to remove people's memories at will, not at will, but like when she intends to, and can take whatever chunks, like anything could be plausible before this first game, right? Like anything can be plausible. At first, it'll be the girl with amnesia, and then so she didn't mean like everything. Okay. So I was thinking like she took away Kyoko's like specific memories related to being to detective shenanigans, but it makes sense for Mikuro. She just forgets everything. At first, it'll be the girl with amnesia, and everyone will feel so sorry for you. But as they unravel the mystery of this academy, they'll find out who you really are. It's exciting to think how they'll treat you when that happens. Knowing you, they'll probably kill someone purely on instinct. Maybe I should rethink my rules about self-defense. You can't. Her memories would be erased. There is nothing she could do about her classmates hating her. But losing even her childhood memories would mean her connection to Junko would be severed as well. Even if Mikuro had no interest in the world, that was unbearable, even for her. I've heard of New Game Plus before, but this is the first time I'll get to see a New Game Minus. Should I tie you up for fun? Or maybe we should make this game even more masochistic? Forget hard mode, very hard mode, and inferno mode. Want to just skip ahead to the impossible mode? Maybe I'll erase your memories after I drag you on a motorcycle, pummel you with 1,000 baseballs, burn you with a stake, and crush you with an excavator. Mikuro knew what Monokuma was talking about. He was describing the tools they had prepared for the various executions they had planned for the students. Do they have an idea of who would? Do they have an idea of the order that people would start killing? Or do they just adapt? They probably just adapt, but... After everyone reintroduces themselves, they'll walk around the school grounds and eventually find a flat-chested girl with amnesia, covered in bandages with Fenrir's tattoo on her right hand. I'd bet a certain fan base might get off on that. If this were a game, that would increase sales by 500%. The Monokuma sounded like he was joking. Everything he said was deadly serious. As evidence, Mikuro heard a rumbling sound off in the distance. Now then, your sweet ride is on its way. Based on the engine's noise, Mikuro surmised that it was the large motorcycle that was supposed to be used for one of the executions. For Mondo's, I think? Executions planned for each student. We'll learn about the ones... Yeah. Makes sense. I took the time to bring this all the way from the punishment room, so you better be grateful. The sound of the roaring engine grew louder and louder, like the approaching footsteps of death. Mikuro wondered how Monokuma would drive it with such tiny arms and legs. But then she remembered she was dealing with an ultimate despair. Junko would make the impossible possible just to bring about despair. A despair that went hand in hand with Mukuro's fate. Did I fail? I couldn't fill Junko with despair? I couldn't save Makoto and the others? Questions raced through Mukuro's mind, but she wasn't able to answer them. There's no way she could have answered them so easily. After all, she was still alive. The sound of the motorcycle grew closer and closer, as if it was threatening to break Mukuro's spirit. Suddenly, Monokuma stopped moving. The other Monokumas continued doing their automatic movements. As the strange event unfolded, Mukuro noticed something. The motorcycle had suddenly gone quiet. After a few seconds, the engine exploded to life and began to approach even faster than before. Only a few seconds later, what appeared in front of the main entrance was an enormous motorcycle that plowed through groups of Monokumas like a predator hunting its prey. The rider of this motorcycle was none other than Mondo Iwata. Mukuro and Monokuma were both visibly shocked by this turn of events. Instead of addressing them, Mondo accelerated the motorcycle he stole from Monokuma directly toward Mukuro. Just before his front tire touched Mukuro, he popped a reverse wheelie and turned the entire motorcycle around. The back wheel swept over Mukuro's back, knocking away all the Monokumas that were pinning her. "Hey, can you stand?" Mondo asked, and begrudgingly offered his hand to Mukuro. Confused, Mukuro took his hand and stood up. "What are you doing, Mondo? I was so close," one of the Monokumas protested. Not in his normal voice, but as the hacker, the Shiki Madurai. "Oh yeah, you're the Shiki or whatever, right?" "That's right. Why are you helping a terrorist?" "I ain't bragging about this or anything, but I have no clue if you or this girl's lying." The veins in his temple began to bulge, and his cheeks flushed with anger as Mondo said, "But still, I ain't the type to just stand around while some idiots gang up on a girl." "What are you saying? Get a hold of yourself. You must be experiencing Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome. You've deluded yourself into thinking you're friends with the criminal who's taking you hostage." Monokuma tried to explain to Mondo, but he ignored him, took Mukuro's hand, and pulled her onto the back of the motorcycle. "Now shut the fuck up. I don't know nothing about Stockholms or syndromes, but don't go acting like you can boss me around." As Mondo shouted, he revved the motorcycle as if he was using it to punctuate his words. The ceiling-mounted turrets began moving, but the two disappeared before the turrets could take aim at the motorcycle. As they zoomed throughout the hallway, countless Monokumas chased after them, waving their claws wildly through the air. This is like a wild fever dream. Like, the idea that there is just a flood of Monokumas now swarming the halls of the school is insane. "Why?" asked Mukuro. "Ah!" shouted Mondo. His voice was even louder than the sound of the engine. "Don't get the wrong idea. I don't trust you at all." He lowered his voice slightly, as if he were whispering to himself. "But still, I don't know why, but I feel like I could trust what he said." "He?" inquired Mukuro. But there's no time for questions. The unit leading the Monokumas chasing after the motorcycle had almost caught up to them. And then, like the enormous maw of some fearsome creature, they brandished their claws in perfect unison. At that moment, the motorcycle zoomed by a certain girl. A girl whose fighting ability surpassed that of any normal human. The strongest girl on Earth. I don't know how to picture this. Like, it's wild to me. Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's presented very well. How are they trying to keep up with the bike? I envision the Monokumas like all the nanobots from Big Hero 6 all linking together and forming like just one giant thing, or like not linking together but like connected somehow and just like zooming through the halls trying to keep up with the bike. This is so good. Especially like all their like claws connected or something. With a fighting spirit that defied comprehension, the ultimate martial artist kicked off the floor. A sound even louder than the motorcycle's engine filled the room. When Mukuro looked back, she saw Sakura landed on the floor, sending the pack of Monokumas flying several meters away. Sakura? As she heard Mukuro mumble her name, Sakura didn't acknowledge it. Like a statue of a fearsome god king, she calmed her breathing as she stood before the pack of Monokumas, ready for battle. Your pursuit methods seem unbecoming for one who claims to be the ultimate hacker. An overpowering aura seeped from her skin, and her skin shimmered as an intense heat began to fill the hallway. Unlike the power of Mukuro's sheer violence, this was the power of martial arts. Mukuro froze the air around her, and time along with it. But Sakura was generating enough heat to boil space itself as she stood before the Monokumas. With the heat stinging her back, Mukuro looked ahead. Hifumi and Chihiro were cautiously peeking from behind the door leading to the dorms, while Hina and Taka kept... I'm trying to remember what Taka's last name was, or first name was. Because his name wasn't just Taka, it was something Taka. While Hina and Taka kept watch from inside the building. After passing them by, Mondo slowed down the motorcycle as he reached the front of the cafeteria and turned into a complete stop. The other students looked warily at Mukuro. But among these students, Mukuro noticed two people who weren't regarding her with suspicion. One was Kyoko, who seemed to be studying the situation. The other was the skinny boy who was leaning against Kyoko's shoulder. Kiyotaka, thank you. Thank you. Makoto? Mukuro's lips began to tremble as she sat on the back of the motorcycle. Ignoring the pain coursing through his body, Makoto smiled at Mukuro and repeated what he said to her earlier. I'm glad you're safe, Mukuro. Unfortunately, Mukuro was unable to realize her hope of filling her little sister with despair. Instead, she had successfully planted the seeds of hope into her fellow students. Okay. I don't want to feel that emotion. Makoto had barely regained consciousness, while Mukuro was fighting the horde of Monokumas at the main entrance. When he woke up, he did something extremely simple. He talked about his memories. Most of the students were still skeptical, even after listening to Mukuro's recorded confession on Chihiro's laptop. Obviously, they were still not entirely convinced at first when Makoto woke up, but after Sakura asked him a certain question, the ambience completely changed. Then beyond the walls of the school, the world is completely destroyed? You're saying there's no one else alive? Makoto slowly sat up to answer Sakura's meek question. Don't worry. I'm sure Kenichiro is still safe. I'm sure he'll still keep his promise to you. Kenichiro was the only man she couldn't defeat. A man who had promised her a rematch and made her one other promise as well. Do I know that name? I don't remember that name. How do you know that name? How do you know about that promise? Because you told me. So this is obviously stuff from the school life. From Sakura's early life? Was this her mentor? No. No. Person who Monokuma used to make Ah! Okay. 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 Gotcha. Gotcha. You told all of us. Sakura was silent after hearing those words. But she then faced the other students and spoke in a loud, clear voice. I'm going to trust Makoto. Sakura! Though Hina was shocked, Sakura continued to speak with determination. What Makoto just said is something I kept locked away inside my memories. In fact, I was planning to keep that a secret until the day I died. But if I shared that secret, that means there was once a strong bond between Makoto, myself, and with my fellow students as well. Makoto continued to talk in a gentle tone. Though it couldn't have been good for his health, he continued to slowly talk about the memories that the other students no longer had. Why do you know about the story I'm playing to write? Are you a specialist Nen user who can predict the future? You already finished that story, Hifumi. You had me help you with thinking. What? Wait a sec. How do you know I extorted money from that girl related to the Kuzuri clan? What? You even try to sell my organs to them. Who was that to? His wounds were excruciating, but even so, Makoto kept smiling and talking about their lives together, as if it was his duty to do so now that he had regained his memories. Really? That's Yasuhiro? Really? Oh, wow. Yasuhiro extorted money from what I can only assume is Fuyuhiko's sister. I don't know if we ever got a name for his sister. I don't think so. But that would mean that he came into contact with Fuyuhiko, the sister, and presumably Peko too. Interesting. Lumped Makoto with Hakagure and tried to sell both their organs. Really? Oh gosh. As the other students listened to him, they slowly began to realize something. The vivid accounts he was providing couldn't be explained as just passing knowledge. Clearly, some kind of bond between them all had been erased. Only Byakuya remained cynical. There's no way I would have grown closer to any of you. It's likely that you're all secretly working together. Though Byakuya was still hostile towards Makoto's recollection of their memories for the time being, he determined that Makoto wasn't actually a terrorist. Are they the previous class? Was Junko older? Oh, no, duh. Oh, hold on. No, duh. I just put two and two together. Clearly. Mukuro had bought enough time for Makoto to wake up and share his memories with the others. Even if she hadn't intended to do that, there was still a small sliver of hope that she grasped tightly. And now, as she looked at the boy who had smiled at her, Mukuro didn't know what to say. She couldn't think of anything to say at all. The battle was over, and Mukuro was now back to being a disappointing girl. She turned away from everyone's faces and apologetically climbed off the back of the motorcycle. But Makoto saw her and slowly opened his mouth to say, "Thank you, Mukuro. You saved my life." Makoto gave her words of sincere gratitude between his weak breaths. Oh. Was that some... I thought it was Mom. Okay. Mukuro couldn't bring herself to look at him as she mumbled to herself. Why? Huh? If Kyoko told you, then you already know what I did, right? After regaining his memories and learning the truth, Mukuro should have been nothing but a hated traitor to him. Why would he smile at someone like her? Mukuro kept her head down. Makoto smiled as if he was unsure how to respond and said, "Well, I guess you're right, but you also saved my life many times during these past 2 years, and..." Makoto took a deep, quiet breath and smiled at Mukuro again. "You're my friend. We all spent time with each other. It'd be great if you could look for a different path, not despair. And if there's any way I can help you, I will. Do you really think I can walk another path at this point? I don't know what you can do, or even what I can do, but I think it's more important to look for that path instead of actually finding it." That might be my favorite line. That might be my favorite line for this entire part so far. I don't know what you or I can do. I don't know what path we'll go down. We've got to... The important part is finding it. We're trying to find it. Was this intentional or a coincidence? Just before he regained his memories, Makoto had said something similar to Mukuro when she spoke to him in the nurse's office as Junko. Regardless of whether he lost his memories or regained them, those words revealed Makoto's true character. As Mukuro confirmed that to herself, Makoto blurted out something that was almost too frustrating. "And it's not just you. Even Junko can..." But he was immediately interrupted. Hi, Monokuma." Monokuma's face appeared on every monitor in the academy, and his laughter seemed to be coming out of every speaker. I could have kept pretending to be that ultimate hacker, but it's boring to impersonate someone who doesn't even exist. If this keeps up, I'll lose my identity and turn into Kanokuma. Kyoko looked up at his surveillance camera and addressed Monokuma directly. You seem to give up pretty easily. There isn't a bear anywhere that gives up as easily as I do. Regardless, I'm pretty sure Chihiro has figured out the secret of my control program by now. Just as I thought, you included that program on purpose. Kyoko realized something when Mukuro told her about Junko. There were 2 reasons such a hateful person would intentionally leave an obvious clue inside the Monokuma units. Oh, we're getting to this now. Okay. Either Junko wanted the students to learn the truth about the outside world and themselves on their own, and turn their hopes into despair, or she was looking forward to that clue resulting in her own plan being undone, which would allow her to feel despair toward herself. She was an angel of everlasting darkness, delighting in her own despair, and using it to spread despair and destruction to those around her. Why would someone like that continue to play the role of Monokuma? Actually, I set that program for Chihiro to discover if she happened to be one of the final 5 survivors. I feel so sad and empty that my preparation was a waste, but I'm going to think about it positively. The word retreat doesn't exist in Monokuma's dictionary. Nervousness began to grip the students as Monokuma continued talking in his relaxing, uplifting voice. Now then, looks like everyone's here, including Toko, who's still tied up in her room. So let's start the heart-throbbing, exciting special graduation exam. What, the graduate? Oh wow, okay. The students broke out in noisy confusion, but Monokuma ignored them and kept talking. Don't think about it too hard. Relax, relax. Relax the Oopert. For all I care. I'll still be the most adorable bear here. Rupert? Byakuya, visibly annoyed with Monokuma's nonsensical rambling, shouted, I already know it's you, Junko. Stop this stupid game and show yourself. Oh my, don't you know. If you want to lure the mastermind out of her heavenly hidey hole, you need to bring a worthy sacrifice. You're not worthy enough at all. Do you really think the mastermind would show herself for your pathetic hope and despair? He roared maniacally, then began to explain the special graduation exam. If you pass my exam, everyone will graduate. But if you fail, you'll be held back for a whole year. I'll reset your memories, give you a fresh new lease on life, and you'll reintroduce yourselves at the start of the school year again. They say people's lives don't come with reset buttons, but I'm not a people. Whether it's soft resets or hard resets, I can do as I please. Yasuhiro seemed confused, but the other students knew what Monokuma meant by reset. He was going to force them to relive their school lives once again. As Yasuhiro struggled to understand, Taka pointed at a nearby monitor and shouted, Stop this already! No matter what you do to us, we'll never commit murder. These past few days should have already made that clear to you. What was that? Jumped Monokuma. Are you serious? Of course. No one here would ever take another human being's life for any reason. As Taka shouted, one of the students, a pale-faced girl standing apart from the others, looked away. It was Sayaka. As she trembled, a voice popped up from behind her. What do you think, Sayaka? She couldn't even turn around from sheer terror. But Sayaka knew. She knew Monokuma was standing right behind her. Do you really think none of you will become a killer? Monokuma leaned towards Sayaka and asked her a question only she could hear. By the way, Sayaka, why did you go to Makoto's room when nothing strange had happened yet? Huh. I feel like I could have a couple of meanings. I'm trying to parse if it means like literally, like just nothing strange happened and it's out of the blue. I'm trying to see if it would work in context of people who've played the A route. Interesting. Did you two have an inappropriate relationship? What would your fans think if they found out you made a move on a boy by sneaking into his room? Or were you there for some other reasons? She could barely make a sound, much less scream, as her trembling worsened. Monokuma had nothing to gain by cornering Sayaka and toying with her emotions like this. He simply wanted to see the young singer fall into despair over her true character. And for that reason, Monokuma did not relent. Is Leon here? Like, my first question back when we first got here was, where's Sayaka? Where's Leon? Like, where's everyone else? Hey, what were you trying to do to your close friend you've known for the past 2 years? Her determination from last night blended with the memories Makoto had recounted and ate away at Sayaka's... Wait, what? Oh, her determination from last night blended with the memories Makoto had recounted and ate away at Sayaka's mind like a disease. As her mind began to rip itself apart, she fell to her knees. A clear ball, flying at just under 105 miles per hour, struck Monokuma in the mouth with enough force to sink into his face. The speaker in Monokuma's mouth was immediately destroyed, as his body rolled into a wall and stopped moving. Sayaka came to her senses and looked where the ball came flying from. She saw Leon, breathing heavily as he stared intensely at Monokuma. Yasuhiro grabbed him and yelled, Dude, why did you do that, Leon? That crystal ball is really valuable. Leon had stolen Yasuhiro's crystal ball and thrown it at Monokuma. That Monokuma bastard was trying to take Sayaka hostage. What was I supposed to do? Dude, that crystal ball cost me $2 trillion. 2 trillion. They don't even print that much money anymore. Oh, bullshit. Besides, the world's all screwed up. What the hell are you going to need money for anyway? But it's safe out there. I'll just join the Major Leagues or whatever and pay you back. Well, I could pay you back doing something else besides baseball. As those two argued, Sayaka fell to her knees. Hey, shouted Leon, running toward her. Sayaka, are you okay? She looked at him and stared blankly. Leon. She had made up her mind. She raised her head as she said, there's something I need to confess to you later. What? Seriously? Sayaka was staring at Leon so intensely that he briefly forgot about the current situation. Glad to know that things would have played out the exact same. Not just you, but to Makoto and the others too. Sayaka had made up her mind to confess the sin that was weighing heavily on her heart, but Leon seemed not to hear the latter half of her remark. He ran back to the others, slapped Fumi and Yasuhiro on their backs and shouted, Alright everyone, let's ace this exam or whatever and get out of here already. There's no way I'm gonna let my happy memories of this place get taken away. The Monokuma inside the monitor responded, Fine. Now that things are finally coming to a boil, let's start the graduation exam. Oh god. Sakura, who had been outside the dormitory, suddenly appeared with some information. The Monokumas in the hallway are acting peculiar. The students all moved to the main building to see what Sakura was talking about. There they saw 50 Monokumas standing in 2 rows along the walls of the hallway, and one standing at the very end of the hall. There was something strange on top of this Monokuma's head, an enlarged version of the escape button that Makoto had obtained from the Monomano machine. As each student took in the sight, an announcement rang throughout the school. That was the entire reason why this all started in the first place, wasn't it? Because of the escape button. The initial prick. The me at the end of the hall has a button on top of his head that'll open the main entrance. You'll have 15 seconds to get that button, and if you do, I'll let you have it in place of a diploma. The students seemed surprised by the straightforward explanation. Only Celeste remained calm, and she asked Monokuma... Oh, I completely forgot about Celeste. She's done nothing this entire time. Only Celeste remained calm, and she asked Monokuma with a bored look on her face. Of course, it is not as simple as running up and taking it, is it? Oh, how mean. You're like the kind of headmaster that would interfere with the students' graduation. Forget the gunfire salutes. I'm going to send my graduates off with some fireworks. 100 fireworks to be exact. Enough for 20 seconds of hardcore partying. The more perceptive students immediately realized what he was talking about. The bombs installed inside each Monokuma. They would explode one after the other, filling the hallway with fire as soon as time started. After 15 seconds, the me standing at the back of the hall is going to sacrifice himself to give you guys one final firework. By the way, this probably isn't important, but that button isn't very endurable. This graduation exam was Monokuma's way of saying that he had no intention of letting anyone leave. It was clear from the explosion that the students saw during the entrance exam that the halls of Hope's Peak Academy would be bathed in fire. Even if someone was lucky enough to survive the explosions, the burns on their body alone would be enough to send them into a fatal shock. The lungs might be completely incinerated by the scorched air before that. Even if they sacrificed one student to run through, the odds were low that they would even succeed. But there's no reason for every student to run in at once either, and a shadow of despair fell upon their faces. Nice! Very nice! I almost want to take a picture so I have those faces as a souvenir. As Monokuma laughed from behind the monitor, Sakura stepped forward. I'll do it. I have only seen the explosion once, but I believe I'm capable of withstanding its power. No, shouted Hina. You can. Even you couldn't handle 100 of those explosions. Sakura shook her head. I'm the only one who even has a chance. Suddenly, Mono remembered the motorcycle he parked inside the dormitory and said, Hold up. That motorcycle might be fast enough to go through those explosions. I'll do it. Don't be hasty, urged Sakura. Even if the motorcycle is unharmed by the explosions, that doesn't mean its rider will be. As Sakura and the others continued their debate, one person stepped toward the hallway lined with Monokuma's. I'll do it. I'll take the ring to Mordor. I'll do it. Makuro, screamed Makoto weakly. Makuro, with her... Makuro? What? Makuro? With her back facing Makoto, turned her head to the side slightly and gave him a small nod. She knew it would come to this. She knew why Monokuma would pose such an impossible exam. Junko is already looking forward to the next despair game. She's going to erase everyone's memories, including mine. She just wants to torment us and fill us with despair before that happens. Makuro knew her sister's personality all too well, and that's why she was confident. She knew that the escape button was real. Whenever Junko brought despair to others, she always made sure there was a possibility that despair would befall her instead. What's up, Muffin? How you doing? Thank you for the resub. Welcome back. How's your night going? If the students won this gamble and made it through this horrible situation, they would finally escape to the outside world. If the students won, then Akan would obviously fill Junko with immense despair. In the same way she left a clue in Monokuma's control program, Junko could not be satisfied unless she took pains to ensure her own destruction. I apologize, guys. I don't have my glasses on. I can't see. It was this quality that made Junko the ultimate despair. That's why Mukuro was determined to do it. She knew she was the only person who stood a chance of making that outcome possible, even if she had to risk her life. But right now, Mukuro wanted to live more than anything. She wanted to hold on to this world, a world she had no interest in previously. She didn't even know if this hesitation she felt was disappointing or not, but she wanted to live and continue searching for a new path. A path where she could abandon her submission to despair, where she could accept the sins of the past and continue to live. Mukuro, who is known as a war machine, found her heart beset by overwhelming fear and anxiety. Until now, it never occurred to her that determination was necessary to live. As if she was brushing that fear aside, she quietly said, Thank you, Makoto. Unfortunately, the words she said to the boy who showed her new possibilities never reached his ears. Sakura, however, heard her and frowned as she said, If you're planning to sacrifice yourself as an act of penance, I'll stop you with all my power. Though her words were firm, there was unmistakable affection hiding in them. Both girls had dedicated their lives to battle, and yet Mukuro felt a twinge of jealousy towards Sakura for possessing something she lacked. Mukuro leaned towards Sakura and whispered in her ear, What? Are you serious? As Sakura's frown intensified, Monokuma's voice blared throughout the halls. All right, I'm going to start the exam now. Ready, set, go! There's no time for questions or objections. The frontmost Monokumas exploded, sending a roaring wave of heat through the hall. But Mukuro didn't look away. She began moving, powered by resolute determination. Oh no. As soon as the graduation exam started, the mastermind focused her control entirely on the Monokuma holding the escape button. and completely synchronized her field of vision with it. She knew what was going to happen next. She could predict what her sister, Mukuro, would do in this exact situation, where she would choose to focus her superhuman skill with weaponry. And so, through Monokuma's eyes, she watched the scene unfold exactly as she had predicted. A pointed metal bar burst through the explosions, heading straight for the weak point of the Monokuma holding the escape button. Specifically, it was aiming for the point where the bomb's detonation system and Monokuma's power source overlapped. It flew straight and true, as if it had been fired by a master archer. Is this Monokuma going to be special and be built differently to curb that? In order to bring despair to Monokuma, and by extension Junko as well, the super soldier known as Mukuro Ukusaba threw the pipe like a spear so it could attack the same weak point she had pierced in the nurse's office. As explosions filled the hallway until only fire remained visible. The spear's speed and precision as it soared to its target defied all human logic. But the mastermind knew. She knew Mukuro had used her power to fill the world with despair. Power was all the disappointing girl had. But that power was useless against Monokuma. The mastermind had predicted that Mukuro would put all her effort into that throw, and Monokuma caught the metal bar perfectly between his hands. Oh shit. The force of the throw knocked Monokuma back several yards, but the pointed end of the bar never pierced through his chest. Well, that was disappointing. The mastermind turned to look at a different monitor. She wanted to see the look on Mukuro's face when she realized that she failed to strike Monokuma. The despair of seeing the final Monokuma explode right before her eyes, completely obliterating the escape button. She wanted to sear this memory of her disappointing sister's final moments as her newfound hope sank into a dark pit of despair. On instinct, she turned her attention to the surveillance camera that hadn't been destroyed. But instead of seeing Mukuro and the others, she only saw Sakura, who looked as though she had finished launching an attack. She only thought it was strange for 1 second, but then the hopelessly powerful mastermind completely understood the situation and shifted her point of view to Monokuma. Just because of that single second, Junko would feel just a pang of despair. 3 seconds left. Amid the smoke, flames and heat encircling the hallway, it burst through with the speed of a cannon shell. It glared at Monokuma with hot, boiling eyes that betrayed the icy expression on his face, and then, sharply, swiftly, strongly, it transformed into a living weapon that cuts through everything, revealing its true form in that hall of despair. 2 seconds left. Monokuma, who was still holding the metal bar in his hands, tried to move, but at that exact moment, the living weapon carved a path through the flames and appeared before him. Its body, which had never been wounded on any battlefield, was sustaining all manner of burns and injuries. But even so, it did not falter. The fire in its eyes never flickered once. 1 second left. The living weapon, Mukuro, slammed her knee into the back of the metal bar Monokuma was holding. The sharp tip of that metal bar pierced through Monokuma like a rail spike, shredding the detonator and his power source into pieces. Time's up. The 100 explosions ceased and smoke blanketed the hallway. Mukuro had dived into Monokuma, and the pristine escape button now rested in her hands. She and the other students of Hope's Peak Academy had passed the graduation exam. It was only a small amount of despair. Monokuma had tasted it in only 3 seconds. Junko. Mukuro looked down at Monokuma. He could no longer move or self-destruct. When she spoke to him, a static-filled voice emitted from his mouth. It seemed his communication function still worked. I never expected you to do that. He still sounded like Monokuma. It seems his voice modulator was unharmed as well. I must have overestimated you. I never thought you'd need anybody's help on the battlefield. When I give the signal, please launch me forward with a roundhouse kick. Mukuro whispered these words to Sakura just before the explosion started. After Mukuro threw the metal bar, she jumped into the air at the exact moment Sakura unleashed a roundhouse kick. Right when Sakura's foot made contact with her own, Mukuro used the force generated by her kick to repel herself at Monokuma. Using the ultimate martial artist's superhuman attack like a springboard, she shot herself through the air like an artillery shell. Enduring intense heat, shrapnel, and blood-draining G-force, she stayed conscious as she charged through the hallway engulfed with explosions and despair. Mukuro trusted Junko. She trusted Junko to predict that she'd throw the metal bar and catch it accordingly. Then she tried to Then she tried to look at her face as the despair sets in. But Junko Enoshima, she knew, would definitely do that. Although Mukuro hadn't predicted that her sister would try to kill her with the spears of Gungnir, she had a better understanding of her actions now. As Mukuro stared Monokuma in his face, all she could do was laugh scornfully. You put your life in someone else's hands for a deadly battle? I don't know how I feel about that. You'll always be a half-assed disappointment. I guess this time I'll just say I lost because I didn't see this much disappointment coming. The end, the end. Mukuro shook her head at Monokuma. No, you're wrong, Junko. Huh? If you want to talk about winning or losing, I think we lost before we even started. Mukuro's eyes shifted from side to side, as if she was unsure of something, and she fidgeted in place as she continued to talk. No matter how much despair they felt, you didn't think they'd kill each other the way they were before. That's why you erased their memories. They aren't like the others you forced in the past. You knew these students would never do it. That's why you believed, isn't it? That's what you believed, isn't it? What are you talking about? So, it's okay, Junko. I'll bring back everyone's memories someday, and I'll show you everyone's happiness and their bonds. I'll show all that to you, and fill you with even more despair. Mukuro nodded after she said this, as if to cheer her sister up. After several seconds of silence, Monokuma responded. You finally beat me this one time, and that lame speech is the best you can do? You're such a disappointment. You never fill me with despair. It's just constant disappointment. After pouting like a sore loser, Monokuma continued to speak in his usual tone. But you guys will be back, and when that time comes, I'll invite you guys to a wonderful place. I found out about this fun island while I was running things here. A fun island, you say? Monokuma's laughter filled the room before the static finally cut out, and his remains fell silent. He wouldn't be talking again anytime soon. The mastermind was already preparing a new despair to bring to the world, and to the students of Hope's Peak Academy, Junko included. While supplies last, limited time availability. In the end, the mastermind stayed in her Monokuma persona until the very end, and Junko Enoshima never showed her face again. It was as if she resented the despair Mukuro had given her. That thought almost filled Mukuro with despair. But when she heard her classmates calling for her, she sealed that despair into the depths of her heart. From now on, she would seal away all her despair. And one day, when she can give Junko the perfect despair, she'll unleash all the despair she stored and plunge with her sister into a dark abyss so they'll both share the despair. I won't leave my little sister alone. In the end, that was the first hope the disappointing sister had felt since she was a child. Several hours later. Oh god, so much just happened. Oh my god. So everyone's still alive. Sayaka was planning on murdering Leon. We never get to actually like see Junko. We're definitely on. So, is this actually Hope's Peak Academy? And in that sense, is Hope's Peak Academy on the island? Is this the same place as that island, or is the island separate? I don't think I made that connection yet. Mukuro, are you really going to go out wearing that wig? After receiving a blood transfusion of the correct blood type, Makoto is beginning to show signs of recovering. Mukuro, holding her wig disguised herself as Junko Enoshima, nodded. If I live as Junko, I might be able to understand her better. It's separate. Okay. That's what I was leaning towards, but I wasn't quite sure, given the shape of the future Foundation building. Despite that, Mukuro's voice still sounded like her own, as if she hadn't fully decided. And I've made up my mind. While I'm out there, I've decided I'll accept everyone's hatred toward me, and toward Junko. I can't die until I've destroyed all the despair that Junko has spread. The damage that ultimate despair inflicted upon the world could not be measured in terms of money, culture, or even human life. Television broadcasts had already begun informing people that Junko Enoshima and Mukuro Kusaba were the heart of ultimate despair. Among the survivors in the outside world, there are still people who hadn't been tainted by despair yet. Regardless of the fact that she released Makoto and the others, to these survivors she was nothing more than the reason the world ended. And to the terrorists wearing Monokuma masks who continued to ravage the world, Mukuro was nothing but a traitor. She was now in the hopeless situation of being enemies with most of humanity. But Mukuro wasn't making a big deal out of it. I'm going to try not to kill anyone who comes after me for revenge. Wouldn't it be safer to just turn yourself in? Wondered Yasuhiro. Well, you might just get executed instead. But you could live to be an old lady if your trial keeps getting pushed back. Mukuro slowly shook her head at Yasuhiro. Laws, justice, these things no longer exist. If the world ended, I wonder how long it would take for things to really go into, like, utter madness. Like, just, like, anarchic? Anarchy and chaos, right? Like, for world spread. Because 2 years sounds really short, but there's a good bit of time in 2 years. Now I'm thinking of Last of Us all over again. Is it really that bad out there? Maybe we should just stay in here. Byakuya glared at Yasuhiro with contempt. Ignorant idiots should just shut up. Your fate won't change whether you stay in here or not. Although he was shocked to learn the Tagami Corporation had been destroyed, Byakuya continued to remain firm and proud, even towards Mukuro. You are a rare asset, continued Byakuya, so I will let you live for now. Depending on your actions, I may consider forgiving your crimes after I've built a new world. Only a Tagami would boast that they're capable of forgiving the crime of ending the world. You don't need to do that. I don't plan on just surviving. After turning away from Byakuya, Mukuro looked at the other students. Everyone was reacting in their own way. Kyoko had a look of quiet preparation. Toko, having just changed back from Genocide Jack, was panicked and confused. Mukuro looked back on the 2 years she spent with them, then turned to Makoto, who shared the same memories as her, and gave him the escape button. Makoto, you press it. I kind of feel bad for Kyoko. Right? Like, in this reality, Kyoko doesn't get shit for a resolution. She doesn't find her dad. She doesn't do anything. She doesn't find the picture. She doesn't... Nothing. She's just like, well, this is it. Exactly like that, right? Like, it was... To me, it was pivotal that she found that back room. Learns the truth about her dad? Did she? Like, she knows that the dad was there as the headmaster. But, I mean, she knew that before going in. But I feel like the real climax to her arc in 1 was finding that back room, seeing the picture that he, kept with him, and having that entire emotional connection back to her. And realizing what her dad's sacrifice truly meant. Like, she can know that her dad's dead now, right? That Monokuma did whatever, that Junko did whatever from Mukuro, and that's she gets that closure. But it's not the same. It's such a limited resolution compared to what she experienced in the first game, and it kind of sucks. Huh? Me? Of course we're gonna press it. I think it's better if you press instead of me. As she watched Makoto accept the button with some hesitation, Mukuro thought about what Monokuma had said. You guys will be back. Mukuro knew that Monokuma was telling the truth. After all, the file the students needed to fully restore their lost memories remained hidden in the academy. Is that what we got from? Is that what Kyoko stole? From the headmaster's room? Or what we saw in the headmaster's room? The research notes of Yasuke Matsuda. Oh no! Wait, no. This is different. His research, the ultimate neurologist. We heard about him. His research is the key to restoring everyone's memories. Even if the students no longer have their memories, they may be able to repair the bonds they had built among themselves over the past 2 years. As long as their memories remain unrestored, the mastermind can still repeat her deadly plan. Although the island mentioned earlier sounded strange, the students could not turn their backs on the despair facing them. Then, let's go. Makoto remembered everything that was happening in the outside world. The boy who had chosen to remain inside the academy 2 years ago was now choosing to leave. How much did he struggle to come to that decision? But he was determined to face the despair awaiting him outside, and hid his internal conflict from the others. By protecting Makoto's hope, Mukuro would bring despair to her beloved sister. But she no longer knew if the end result of her goal would lead to hope or despair. She pulled the wig over her head and hid her face with her hands. Was she smiling because hope was waiting for her? Or was she crying because her path would lead to despair? When she lowered her hands, her face was devoid of all emotion. Mukuro no longer knew what expression she would wear on her face. At the same time, Makoto pressed the escape button. A siren began to wail as the turrets retracted into the ceiling. From beyond the heavy door, a bright light appeared. An infinite number of ifs, and all the possibilities contained therein encased the world. Accepting everything, hope, despair, and even the feelings of that disappointing girl, Mukuro Ukesaba. Oh, that's from Danganronpa. Okay. I mean, Junko referenced the neurologist during that graduation exam from 2. So, that's what I was thinking of. Was it Junko? Maybe it was Makoto. Oh, and that's it. Oh my god. Okay, well, guys, that's, yeah. That's really good. Yeah. Yeah. I enjoyed that. I very much enjoyed that. I think that's the best thing in the Danganronpa franchise. Really? But if it didn't happen, if it's... I can see an argument for the potential best what-if girl. I think it's a bold claim. Bold claim for best girl. I respect it. I like... Yeah, no, so, yes. 100%. I don't mean to denounce that at all. Every bit of development is as real as it is in context of whatever work of fiction or whatever whatever story it is. My thought is, how much weight and relevance does it have? How do I say this? If there's a moment... I don't know how to express this. Oh gosh. Even if the events don't happen, we get a huge insight into Makura as a character. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And one of the things I really appreciated about this was the whole like backdrop from 2 years ago, especially with the picture thing. That was really cool. And I was thinking about it some more. Like, Makuro's looking at Makoto when he's taking the picture, right? He's going snapshot, snapshot. And in every single picture, Junko's face is out of it. But Makuro's face, it's... I think it's really cool. Like, very well done. Very well done. I think where I struggle is I question how much weight and relevance this has to other material that is produced to like be canon with the series, because this on its own is great, and I don't. It's great, but I like it so much. I want there to be more done with it, and I don't want to just settle for this, you know. So. Oh, God. The Button of Hope. And the Tragic Warriors of Despair. I get it now. I get it now. Cool. I think stuff stated to happen before the start of one is canon. That's what I'm taking it as. What's the first thing to change? The first thing to change in this is Sayaka's... Is Makoto having that headache and feeling sick and Sayaka leaving? No, the first thing to change is Makoto getting the button. Duh. Yeah, no. So, I guess like from that moment on, like it's up in the air for whatever happens. That's my take on it. As long as things can like neatly fit and like retroactively fit in whatever story and it's by the same person, the same group, the same creator, that's gonna be my go-to for like these are the things that happened. That's why it's called If. Right. I mean, I'm assuming it's called If because it's like, what if this happened? Reminds me of kind of. I think I made other Neverending Story comparisons. I'm so sorry. Kind of reminds me of Neverending Story, where the narrator's like, and so on and so on and so on happened. Well, that's a story for another time. I think they even do that a couple times in the chapters of the book. What a great book. Guys, if you've only seen the movie, you're doing yourself a disservice. Honestly, the book is phenomenal. The movie is only like not even half of the book. Oh, it's so good. So, thinking about it, I don't know where I place Makuro. I will say I was kind of disappointed. I like the seeds that were planted in Makuro. And I like where they start to like blossom into, but they didn't quite get there. They didn't turn into full flowers yet, right? They're still they're like in that sapling stage, and they're just sprouting up, and everything else is going to take root. Which on one hand is nice. On one hand is nice because it means that it's left up to the player's imagination, or to the reader's imagination. And they can envision a world in which whatever happens. I was really looking forward to Makuro denouncing Junko, though. And, like, reclaiming herself, essentially. But I guess there's always other media for that potential possibility. Ultra Despair Girls is kind of sucks gameplay-wise. Uh-oh. Wait, is it not a visual novel? Is it like a full-fledged game? I can't believe we finished Danganronpa 2. Oh my god. Oh my god. It feels like a huge weight is just off. I'm so happy y'all like voted for this shit. Like, it would have taken me years to delve into this, and I'm really, really enjoying it. It's a third-person shooter going around shooting mono bears. Found a video called Ultra Despair Girls the Movie, which looks to be just all the cutscenes and story bits strung together. Sure. Like, if we could, like, expedite that or something, that'd be great. Is Despair Girls, Ultra Despair Girls, next before the anime? Yes? Alright. Well, I guess we'll see what we're doing for that then. Yeah, we'll see how everything works out. I've still got to finish uploading everything for Danganronpa off the YouTube. I'm going to be finishing this VOD. I'm going to highlight the last VOD, this VOD, put it up on the YouTubes. And after Dark Souls 2, we'll get that all concurrent. Especially after everything that's going on with Twitch right now. VODs are not safe. Stuff from Ultra Despair Girls will very briefly show up in the anime. Gotcha. Okay. I got no issue with that. I assume it's going to be like the Kingdom Hearts movies, right? Where it's like, just all the cutscenes, all like the important dialogue bits, the story, and everything else. Or like overarching story, I guess. Cool stuff. Yeah, I appreciate y'all like being here and chilling. It's yeah, it's been a blast. Stay tuned for some more Danganronpa content sometime in the future. We will be going over and doing the watching the anime at some point on or in Discord. And if we're gonna do the Despair Girls movie, we'll do that in Discord as well. So I mean, that killing two birds with one stone there, really. Good stuff. Well, I'm gonna try to fix my glasses. I will BRB once again.